Are we ready?
Someone else who saw that.
Mark does.
No, you have the volume on the computer. The volume on the computer.
Better?
Okay. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the select board meeting to order on Tuesday, September 7th, 2022. So welcome, everyone. We always start our meetings off with public comment, and that is for comments from the public for anything that's not on the agenda tonight. If you've got an item or want to speak about an agenda item when that occurs, but this is for something you want the board to know that's not related to the agenda item. And we'll do the same thing at the end of the meeting. So, any public comment? Patty? Yes.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Hello?
I hear you, Patty.
Okay, good. At the June 14th Select Board meeting, Mr. Purple reported on a meeting Mass DOT requested he and Karen Galligan attend in regard to the St. Mark Street project and the use of grant funds and Chapter 90 money. Regarding that, I have two questions. First, Ms. Cook asked if Mass DOT would document the results of the meeting in writing. And according to the minutes, Mr. Purple stated he believes so and explained Mass DOT how such a document would be beneficial to the town. Has this document been requested and received? And if so, when will that be made public?
Document's been requested several times and I've yet to receive a document.
Did they give you a timeline on that or just haven't responded?
They did not. I don't have an answer for that, but I will follow up with that.
Okay, my second part of the question is also, according to Mr. Purple, Mass DOT said that until the park is completed, there would be hold on Mass DOT grant applications submitted by Southborough. And if the park is not completed, and I quote, another conversation about grant funds will need to occur, unquote. So my question on this is to the board, how have these two things affected your decisions to push through building a park and a parking lot on private land with taxpayer money?
So Patty, if you can hang with us for a few minutes, Mr. Dinkin is going to give us a quick update on where things stand as far as the St. Mark's Park Working Group, which may help answer your question. We continue to proceed along the path that we outlined at our meeting on May 31st. I believe that we'll have further substantive updates in the next month or so. As you know, the archaeological dig took place last week. We're expecting to hear back from that pretty soon. And we've got some other things that are related to it that should be ready to report in the next 1 to 2 weeks. So if you just hang in here, when Mr. James gets to his report, I think you'll hear some more things too.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, any other public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Brascio for a moment.
Thank you, Kathy. So I just wanted to recognize, it's been a tough week for our veterans here in town. We lost decorated World War II veteran Arthur Butler. Arthur loved trains and he actually owned his own live steam locomotive at one time. He was a longtime resident here in Southborough and he was 101 years old, and at his 100th birthday party, he was living at New Horizons in Marlborough, and there was quite the celebration for him, including he was presented with a flag that was flown over the Capitol. So condolences to all who had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Butler, a definite gem, and I've enjoyed some of our conversations. And secondly, we also lost veteran Russell Horn. He was 77. He was an Army veteran. He loved history. He was heavily involved in the Southborough Historical Society. and he actually traced his family's lineage back to the 1400s. He was a member of the Buffalo Soldiers. He coached many soccer teams over the years. And again, I had the pleasure of spending time with them, engaging them in conversations and learning a heck of a lot more about Southborough and just history in general. So on behalf of the board, we offer our deepest condolences to the Butler and Holmes family. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so we're going to start off with some appointments. We've got 5 that we're going to actually talk to the candidates. We had a whole lot of appointments for tonight, so what we did is we left the 5 that we're about to talk to first, and then we put several on the consent agenda, and the ones that are consent agenda are people that are already either on committees or that we have interviewed prior to that, other than Karen. And the reason we just called you guys is because you've got, you're going on to a board where there's another person here tonight too, so we thought we'd go ahead and talk to you one more time real quick. Okay, so we're not picking on you. No, it'll be quick. Okay, let's start out with Mr. Mans. So if everybody could come up to the table as we call you so that people who are watching on Zoom can hear you and see you.
Here and see, sounds good. Excellent.
All right. So the first thing is introduce yourself.
Okay, great. My name is Doug Mans, Southborough resident, 18 years. Married to my wife Ingrid, and we have 3 kids. One is still at home, so we're not empty nesters yet. But anyway, so been in Southborough a long time. So just quick background, and we live down near Mary Finn School. Just more me professionally, just for a quick background. So my education is actually urban planning originally, both undergraduate and graduate school. And was at Cornell undergraduate, and then went to the GSD at Harvard for graduate school. And then, but since then I've been in real estate development, all in the greater Boston region, and have done developments in Boston, also in the suburbs as well. Everything from apartments to condos, life science and commercial office. But also have been heavily involved also with affordable housing as too. And so that's what piqued my interest. So I also have a little more time on my hands. My kids don't need me, which they frequently tell me at this point. But looking to get more involved in the town of Southborough. And so I've talked with a few folks who are actually already on committees. They suggested based upon my background, I should, definitely potentially volunteer for this committee. And, my goal would be to really bring my experience, from the actual execution of, real estate, and try to find ways for affordable housing. Because obviously we all know we have a severe affordable housing crisis, not just in Southborough, but really across the state. And so looking for ways to leverage what the resources the town has to try to bring more affordable housing to the town or think of creative solutions. So really quick background, but just I'm happy to answer any questions.
That's great. And just to be clear to the audience, the committee you're applying to is what we call Shop City, but it's a Southborough Housing Opportunity Partnership Committee. So it's a mouthful. So it sounds like you will fit right into that committee as far as your background goes. So I'm going to start down with Mr. Dingington to see if you've got any questions.
Well, Mr. Mans, I don't have any questions for you on that. I am the current select board representative to Shopsy, and you're a great find for this committee. So look forward to working with you, and look forward to supporting your appointment.
Great, thank you.
Sam?
Thank you. Again, thank you for applying. Welcome. Have you had a chance to look at any of the shops and meetings so far?
Yeah, I looked at one on YouTube. I've gone through it, which is great. Talked to Tom Biscobel as well too. And so that was great background. So
Very interesting. I think you've got a great background for this, and it's always interesting to me that coming from the private sector myself, you know, sort of recalibrate for town government service in terms of being able to get things done. But I guess I would view your opportunity here is to be able to help a lot with what I think is a great opportunity of public-private partnerships for these kinds of things. I think that we're never going to have the money internally to be able to build the housing and support the housing that we need. But I think there is money out there in various ways, and so the better connections we have with the real estate development community, and that opens up those opportunities. So I would encourage you to sort of keep your eye strong in that direction, and I look forward to supporting you.
great, thank you.
Lisa?
Hi, Doug, thank you. So nice to actually finally meet you in
Yes.
person. I had the pleasure of speaking with Paul Desmond, who had recommended Doug very highly for this position. And I'm glad that you had gone and looked at some of the meetings and everything. Paul and I have talked a lot about this, and he feels very strongly that Doug will be a great fit. I actually know family as well, so very much looking forward to supporting you, and thank you for stepping forward.
Great, thank you.
Did you also talk to another member?
So I believe Jesse spoke. Did you speak to
Yep,
Jesse
yep,
Stein?
Jesse and I spoke
Yeah.
at length too. as
Jesse
well.
Stein
Yep.
on Shopsy as well. So I'm sorry, thank you.
Chelsea.
Hey Doug, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Is this your first time volunteering for a committee in town?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. I think your background fits really well with this committee. And I think you'll be a great asset to the committee. So I look forward to supporting your appointment.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Doreen, have you had a chance to meet?
I have not, that's why
No.
I'm here tonight. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Here's
Excellent.
your chair.
As long as they appoint you.
That's right. Thank you.
Okay, so I have no further questions. It's nice to go last. It's nice. Okay, so can I have a motion to appoint Mr. Mance to Shopsy?
So moved.
Second,
Term ending, right?
term
6/30/25.
What is it?
6/30/25.
6/30. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's a full, almost a full 3-year term. Okay, almost a full 3-year term.
Excellent.
All right, so we got a motion, we got a second. All in favor of appointing Doug to Shopsy? Aye. That's fine. Vice versa. No roll call
Thank you.
votes.
Thank you for
very
coming
much.
tonight as well.
Appreciate it. Yep, thank you.
All right, so next is Karen. Let's be you next. So we've got 2 candidates tonight for the Youth Commission Board. But before we get started, I gotta say something or two because you're filling the shoes in one case of Sue Becca, who is moving from Southborough with her family. So the Becca family alone has served on many, many committees. I personally am a very good friend of Sue and worked with her a long time because she's not only on this board, she's also part of the Friends of the Southborough Youth Commission, Inc., which is the charity that supports the department. So I've known she's moving for a while, when we talked about it. She is one of the most sincere human beings I've ever met in my life. So this is a great board you're about to join. I think you'll enjoy it. They do really, really good work in this town. What they do is hard because of the nature of the work, but they all get together, and I think that we do a really good job supporting the town as far as what their mission is. But I just want to say something about Sue. She gets nervous when she talks in front of crowds, but that to me makes it just more precious. She's willing to do it. She's nervous, but she gets up and does it, but which means it just makes it more sincere what she tries to express. But when she was telling us that she was going to, they decided to move, they were going to maybe try to keep an apartment at one point, but they decided not to do that. But she started crying, and then she said, but can I still be a friend? I said, of course she'd be a friend. So she can still be on the Friends because there's no resident department of that. So she's still going to be involved. So you guys will still get to meet her and get to know her. But she is going to be missed for sure. So with that, we talked to you a few weeks ago for EDC. So we've met you. So we know your background, et cetera. So we don't have to repeat that.
Okay.
So I guess let's just stick to questions that talk about the actual role that she is applying for tonight, so we can keep it in here. So Andrew, I'm gonna start with you again.
Yeah, so you can just tell me about your interest in this committee and you're getting going on the EDC and what drew you to the youth commission.
Sure. Well, my daughter is in 7th grade, so she's at Trotter, and last year she started the youth council, and she came home and she was all so excited about the programs that Shannon put on at Trotter and the mental health, and we did like pet therapy days, and so they're just she was so engaged and excited about the projects. And then last year I also did a Zoom training with Shannon on suicide prevention, and I just was blown away at what the projects or that the mission of the Southborough Youth Family Services. And then I had the pleasure of meeting Sue Butka a couple weeks ago that Kathy was talking about, and we were just talking about our kids and activities, and I just happened to mention Southborough Youth Family Services, and she had mentioned that she was moving out of town and they had a vacancy, and I thought, well, great if I could help support the board. And then we actually talked about the Friends too, and then I actually went and talked to Sarah Castle, and she explained to me about the board and the Friends, and then I was emailing back and forth with Sue, and I would like to possibly be involved with both. I I have a lot of time right now. I'm a realtor, but I'm just growing my business. So I don't have a full-time job at home and just think it's so passionate. Like, it's such a great mission to help the well-being and the mental health of our town. And anything I can do to support, I would love to.
Thank you very much.
Sam?
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I think you seem like a strong candidate. Appreciate you volunteering here. I can't resist the opportunity to also make an appreciative comment about Sue Butler's participation in youth and family. I think I gave Sue and Sarah Castle credit for leading the transition of youth and family services several years ago from a group that was focused mostly on intensive counseling with a very limited budget to a change of focus to find more external programs that people could refer people to get staffing up to a steady state level that made sense relative to the needs for the town. And I think that Sue, Sarah, and the Youth Commission as a whole did a great job of managing through that transition to get funding and additional positions funded there to fortunately be in great shape, relatively speaking, when the pandemic hit, which created huge additional stress. Not that everything is perfect yet, but they were far better positioned because of that leadership that started 4 or 5 years ago. And I think the town knows sort of great depth for that. I wish you well. Thank you.
Lisa?
Thank you. So I'm actually going to go a little bit of a different route here. I think that Karen is a wonderful fit for the Youth Commission. Something Karen just recently did within my own neighborhood was it's all about bringing people together and making people feel included. And Karen decided that there's not enough neighborhood get-togethers in this town. So how many people attended, Karen?
Had 100 people. I put 90 flyers in a bunch of mailboxes and we had 100 people show up last weekend. Lisa was away.
I was, but again, it's just, I think you're perfect to be involved with youth and family, with being inclusive and wanting to bring a community together. So I so support you, Karen, and I think you'll be great for this. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Chelsea. Hi, Karen. Thanks for putting your name on this one as well. Juggling multiple committees is great because you can see you can compare them and try to bounce ideas off of, committees from one and the other. EDC and Youth Commission are very different, so it's a good.
I don't think I'll get confused.
But I did get a chance to speak to Lauren Ritchie, and she spoke very highly of both candidates. And I know she's in the audience tonight. If we can bring her over and appoint them at the same time, I think that would be great. And I think you'll be a great fit on this committee. It's a very active committee, and they do a fantastic job, and they work really well together. So I think you'll be a great addition to that. Thanks.
Okay, I have no further questions, and Laura did send us an email to confirm her support of this. So is Laura the current chair?
Yes.
Okay, and then Marguerite's in the audience too, and then there's somebody from Youth and Family Services too, so you've got quite a people serving this. Laura, I think
Lauren, if you want to say anything, feel free to raise your hand, but if not, we're good. Okay. She didn't raise her. Okay.
All right, so can someone make a motion to appoint Karen to the Southborough Youth and Family Services Board?
Term ending
6/30/25.
So
Second.
All in favor of appointing Karen? 5-0. Thank you.
thank you, Karen. for
Thank you so much.
stepping
Appreciate it.
You're gonna be busy.
That's what I like. And as I'll echo Doug, my kids don't need me much.
Nancy, can you come on in? Sure. So Lauren has, in Lauren's email, she recommended both ladies to use them, just to be clear. Okay, all right, this time we'll start with, so welcome. So now we don't know you very well, so can you give us some of your background, why this is interesting to you, et cetera?
Sure. My name is Nancy Sutton. I've lived in Southborough for 10 years now. I have 2 daughters. One is at Algonquin and the other one is at Trotter. I have a background in psychology. That's what my undergrad is in. I have been a substitute teacher in middle school. And right now I do childcare part-time, and the rest of the time I'm home with my kids. I saw the email from Lauren over the summer, And it said, you know, they want someone who's passionate about this and who has, I think she said, quote unquote, ear to the wall, which with the ages of two teenage tween daughters, I think I definitely do. Also, I'm someone who loves someone who struggled and had to find help. And so I have empathy for people going through that. It happened during the pandemic. And it was scary. It was overwhelming, even interface, which I so appreciate the town bringing them here for help. They were shut down during the time, and it took, I can't remember how many weeks for them to call me back, and they called my cell phone and I missed it. And then I got put back into the queue again. I mean, it was really challenging. And from talking to Sarah, there's a lot that is available through SYFS that I wasn't aware of. So not only do I want to help with, you know, programming and helping them focus their programs to meet the needs of the community, I'm all about helping with awareness because, you know, people need to know what they can do for them. You're welcome.
So I'm gonna start with Chelsea.
Okay, great. Have you had a chance to watch any youth commission meetings?
I haven't yet, but
Okay.
I'm looking forward to my first one next week.
Okay, great. What are you most interested in working on with them?
Definitely helping spread awareness about the mental health services, and maybe getting it out, not just to the adults, but to the schools too, and the community programming, which I also took QPR, like Karen did, and it was a really excellent program.
Yeah, that was good. for you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lisa?
Thank you. Thank you for stepping forward. I have no questions. I very much look forward to supporting your appointment. I think your background is a great fit for this. I think we're very fortunate here in Southborough that we do have people with diverse backgrounds that step forward, that each one brings something so special to all these boards and committees. So as a first-time person stepping forward, I thank you. I look forward to supporting you.
Thank you.
Sam?
Thank you for volunteering. I echo Lisa's comments. It sounds like you have a great background, well aligned with the goals of the commission. And I think it's a great addition to it. So thank you.
And I don't have any questions. I really appreciated what you shared earlier. And I'm excited that I think we're going to have some great new additions to the youth commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this fills out the board.
Yeah.
That's good. So as you might have heard from what I said earlier about Sue, this one is very near and dear to my heart. Before the select board, I was on the advisory committee for a long time. And there was a time when, shockingly, people on that committee said things like, why do we even need this department? Literally, we're going to vote to get rid of the non-fund department. And so year after year, we kept chopping that budget. So it was down to literally a salary and a half. I'm glad to say that today things are a lot different. I believe the town appreciates what this department does and what's needed. Sarah Castle does a great job along with the others that work with her to provide the services. There's been money allocated recently that's going to help you even do more than what you've been able to do in the past. So I'm very excited that both of you are going to go forward because I really think it's one of the most gratifying experiences that you could have as far as on the board of this town because of what you get involved in, what you see, and what the help that we're able to provide to people in this town. So thank you. Okay, can I have a motion to appoint Nancy to the Youth Commission Board?
Through
Sure.
6:30.
For a term ending 6/30. 25. Okay, second, all in. So there's Chelsea second, all in favor? 5-0. So thank you.
Thank you again very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So are you, Mr. Davis, by any chance? Okay. You walked in just perfectly. Time is just right. Okay, so the next two are going to be potential appointments to the golf course committee. Is this one, this one too?
I believe it will.
It's got to be.
Yes,
right?
it's 5. You're
And then-
right. That's
yeah,
where it means, so this will fill it out.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, and these two terms are going to be for 6/30/23, in case I forget. Mr. Johnson, you coming up?
Sure.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hello. So welcome. So can you just tell the select board a little bit about your background and why you're interested to be on the health committee?
Sure. Of course, my name is Robert Johnson. My wife and I, we've lived in Southborough for the last couple of years. And Michelle recently joined, I believe, the Personnel Committee. We used to live in Westborough, so we decided coming out of COVID, we wanted to, get engaged in the community. My job keeps me pretty busy. Hers does too, but she works from home. So when I was looking at the committees, golf seemed like a logical choice for me. Good way to help me lower my handicap. No, just fine. And do not make me do a putting contest right now because I would lose. I'm particularly interested in, how we help young people get engaged with golf. And I think working with the golf committee would be a good way for me to contribute to the community with the time I do have available, but most importantly, impact young people, because that's what most of my professional life has been about. I've been in higher education now some 30, 35 years, and been a president at multiple institutions since my 13th or 14th year. So
I would think this would be fairly easy for you compared to what you do.
Not quite so sure.
depends on the day, right?
So when you start, are you commuting to Springfield every day, or do you stay out there and come?
I do stay out there some days. It's about 45 minutes. It's not
Alright,
bad.
so it seems to me like it's a lot longer.
It's not. And I probably spend a day and a half, sometimes 2 days a week in Boston. And by the way, I can get to Springfield quicker than I can get to Boston. It's an hour and a half every time to Boston. Or more.
That was true yesterday, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good point. So I'm going to start with Chelsea.
Okay, great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you,
Thank you
Chelsea.
for volunteering for this. I don't think I have any questions. I think you'll be a great fit for this. One thing that I've been looking for the golf course to do is to increase youth programming
Mhm.
there, and I think we have a great opportunity to do that. I do believe, Mr. Purple, to keep me honest here, that Recreation did run a program for younger players this year. I think this is such an asset in our town. Not
Yes.
every town has
No,
this.
right.
And I think the younger you learn, the easier it can be, and the more frustrating it can be when you get older and don't play as much, right? So,
This is true.
so I think you'll be a great fit for this, and I'm looking forward to what ideas you have to increase youth programming there. So,
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you. I echo what Chelsea said, and as only being in Southborough a couple of years, welcome.
Thank you.
It's a great town.
It is.
And as Chelsea said, I think the golf course is one of our greatest assets, that we have, the ability for our kids to be able to grow with and appreciate the sport. So I very much look forward to supporting you, and thank you, with as busy as you are, for stepping forward to do this.
Thank you.
Sam?
Thank you. Again, thanks for volunteering. It sounds like you're a great fit for the committee. I don't have any questions. I've observed that, saw, I guess, recently here that the golf course is on track this year for the best year ever in
That's
terms
great.
of rounds and revenues. And last year was the best year ever.
Yeah.
I think we've seen that the pandemic actually brought out a lot of folks who maybe many weren't golfers. And I think the challenge is to hang on to those, generate continued usage and add programs, not only for young people, but there's a very active women's league there, for example.
Sure.
So the ways that we can actually reinforce that, and it's a fixed cost operation pretty much. So you're coming the line through, generate more revenue and more to the bottom line, make investments back in the course for things like irrigation. That goes on in this. So I think in business sense, sort of management of those resources is a key asset that I think you'll bring to this. So I appreciate your volunteering. Look forward to supporting you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, I don't have any real specific questions. It's great for the town that you're willing to step up and get on the committee. I guess, it was very interesting. Mr. Purple just recently circulated the golf course revenue numbers, and I think the takeaway was that through like this month, there's more revenue than there was in the entire year last year. Is that
Well, we're up 20% year over year. to be specific.
Okay, all right, okay. So you're really jumping on board and it's kind of on the rise.
Yeah.
And I think that some of the two kind of recurring challenges are airing golf balls onto a last Swan Road and also the irrigation.
It wasn't me, by the way.
Okay. Because, you know, I know Sam has gotten me interested in this issue as well as the irrigation challenge at the golf course. It would be great to be able to take some of the success of the golf course and then make it more modern, so you don't have all these yellowed greens during the hot months.
But to your point, Andrew, if next year is not as good a year, then we'll know where to look.
Yeah, it's my fault.
So, Mr. Johnson, do you know the history of why we own this golf course?
I do not.
So real quickly, a few years ago, St. Mark's School, the one of our private schools here, owned the golf course. And we negotiated a deal with them where we basically swapped property. We needed to build a new public safety building, and our old public safety facilities were right next to St. Mark's School. So they ended up with our old police station and our old fire station. We ended up with the golf course and built the public safety building that's right behind there, and then have put a conservation or restriction on the golf course. So it's going to be restricted for forever. And so now we're trying to figure out how to run a golf course, right? We never did that before. But I think things are going great. So to add on to what Mr. Neal just said, so we're up right now 20% year over year, even with this hot summer and dry summer. We're at a run rate. If we were to keep that 20% up for the next couple months, we're going to receive $80,000 as our share of the golf course revenues. So it's a real number. We're always looking for revenue in Southborough other than real estate tax revenue, so that we can try to keep the tax levy down. So this is a good way to do it. So I'm excited about it. I think the committee you're on has got great people on it, and they've got good ideas as far as things to do. I absolutely ditto what Ms. Malinowski said about youth programs and women's programs. You know, women, you know, they play golf a little bit differently, right? And they need their ladies' days and their things too. So add women to that list too, as far as programs for them. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So can someone make a motion to appoint Mr. Johnson to the golf course committee for a term ending 6/30/23?
So moved.
Second? Second. All right, all in favor? So you're appointed.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank
Nice to
you.
meet you all. Take care. Have a good one.
All right, next is Mr. William Davis.
Aye.
Guess we're not gonna ask if you know anybody on the golf course committee.
So do you go by Bill or is it William?
Bill.
So welcome, Bill. So can you just give us a little bit of your background and why you're interested in being on the golf committee?
Sure. We've been in town for 29 years. I'm MBA, master's in German. I worked in corporate international finance for about 30 years. In fact, I was the last treasurer of CAS on Route 9. I sold the company. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry about that alone. So for the last 6 years or so, I've been supporting non-for-profits. I'm the chairman of the treasurer of the Massachusetts Badminton Association. Thank you. And I've been teaching. I teach economics at Framingham State. I have 2 classes this afternoon. I teach mergers and acquisitions in a graduate program at Clark University. In my spare time, I play golf, pickleball, and tennis, and badminton. I don't really want to be on the committee, but I think the committee deserves the help. It certainly needs populating if there are 5 slots that have to be done. I don't really see it as a golf course, to be honest with you. It's a place where people congregate to play golf during the golf season, but they ride sleds and they hike and they walk their dogs and they do other wonderful things in the rest of the time too. I think it's a lot more than just a dry golf course. I agree with you, Sam. It certainly needs water if it's going to be a big deal course, but that's not really the point for a lot of people. You mentioned, Kathy, that women play golf differently. Not really, maybe a little slower, but that's about the extent of it.
They don't
And
throw
they
the
play-
golf clubs.
They play, most men don't. They play for the same reason that men do. It's typically, 3 reasons. to play golf and to challenge yourself and to get better, to get a little exercise, and to be with people you want to be with. So if you get 2 out of the 3 when you play around the golf, that's a good day. I play with a guy who has a terrible degenerative nerve disease. He can't play golf anymore, but he still wants to get in a golf cart and ride around out there with us because that has meant something to him. So whereas Bob was talking about youth programs, sure, but we need programs to encourage old people to use the facility as well. And if they can't play golf anymore and they just want to rent a cart and ride around, absolutely, we need to encourage them. And we also need to think about how to use it during the off season. We joined Hopkinton Country Club when it was before it was being built. And then it was incredible fun all winter long to snowshoe there and to watch the construction of the clubhouse. And it's the same here. This is a wonderful place for snowshoeing and for riding sleds. I mean, I see events with the police serving, hot chocolate at the bottom of the hill when the kids come down and doing a little bit of community building, those kinds of things. So Bob can put his primary focus on the kids. I'm there for the old people. Why? Well, because I'm old now.
That is, great. So, how long were you at CAS?
9 years, 9.5 years.
What was the time period?
Let's see, so we sold it in 2015, so we were in 2000 or 2006-ish.
Did you help with the food bank in Southborough putting it together?
I've worked there. I put together the inventory system for it.
Right, so you worked with me, so I was the accountant to put together the 501c3, so I recognized you from something, so it's been a long time.
Yeah, I was the moderator of Pilgrim Church at the time, and I've been the treasurer of Pilgrim Church and other things.
All right, so I mean, you've got great ideas, so I'm done. Andrew?
Well, I don't have any questions, but just going back to were explaining to Mr. Johnson the whole history of how it came to be that the town operated that whole golf course. It's just amazing to me, and I think it's great that here we are. There was a pretty controversial issue back in
Sure
the town
it was.
meeting in what had been like 2015, 2000.
Yeah.
Could the town, did it make sense for the town to operate a golf course? Some people said the town would never be able to do it in a good way, and it's just rewarding to see that who could have expected all these things to change. Obviously, the pandemic came, and then people got much more interested in golf, and then the trend towards 9-hole courses, and then it just ended up in a situation. The town has this great asset, so it's just rewarding to see such great volunteers come forward, repopulating this committee. So I support your point.
And you touched on something, Sam, you made a comment earlier about playing last year. You couldn't buy golf balls last summer. They were gone. Supply chain issues and such great demand. Titleist Pro V1s were gone.
Except the residents along Ratasquama had ample supply that they could sell to people.
But they've had that for years and years and years. That's not new.
Slice cut, correct. Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks. Again, welcome. Thank you for volunteering. I think I certainly applaud your concept of getting more use out of the facility, thinking about it more broadly than simply an athletic event kind of thing. Interesting, the irrigation is connected to winter use. I don't know if you're familiar with Weston Ski Track. They have snowmaking along the fairways, and a lot of people out there. So I think things like that again open up more use possibilities that we're going to continue to consider.
That's tricky. If we're going to attract a lot of people to come in and use it, then we need to consider parking, which in the winter is going to be more of a challenge even than it is in the summer.
But again, all that kind of stuff can be planned, I think, and I think the goal here for me at least is a clear, longer-term plan for the use of the facility. And it takes time to get resources for that in the public sector, but if you have a plan, I think that's a great start. So thank you for volunteering. I look forward to the ideas that are going to come up.
Lisa?
Thank you. It's very much a pleasure to meet you. One of the things I said earlier is it's great to have people from different backgrounds serve on these committees. And I have to tell you, your energy is just outstanding and positive. And I think
And I taught 2 classes.
I think you will bring something very beneficial, as does everybody that serves. We all have our strengths. And I think one of your strengths will be bringing people, more people to come and utilize the asset that we have. So thank you so much for stepping forward. It has been a pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you
Pleasure.
for putting your name in on this one. I think that you have a lot of great ideas, especially for the winter season. And you know, the kids use that hill, so you've already got the people coming, so you can just capitalize on some additional things. And you're on the right track. I think you'll bounce off well with the committee. So I look forward to your appointment.
So, Mr. Davis, when we meet someone with a background like you, and we see that it might fit on more than one committee, we like to let you know that there may be another place. We definitely want you to do the golf committee, you can hear that. But there's another committee too that your background would be perfect for, that I would sincerely, and I'm being serious, like you to consider too at some point, which is advisory committee. It is a town finance committee. It's independent of this board. It recommends to the town the budget that they want the town to vote on each year. So your background would be really great for that if you would at some point, when maybe things free for a bit, consider that too. So I'm being very serious to this. Is not, we want you to be the golf, so I don't want to take away from that, but that one would really be good. Okay, so someone make a motion to appoint Bill Davis for a term ending 6/30/23 to the golf course committee.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you all.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is being tabled at the request of Tim Davis. He had asked to come on the second board to update us on some of the things that are going on, and they're not quite ready to do that. So he asked to have this postponed to a later meeting. So we're going to table that one. Okay, chair report. So we all know we made a big decision last week. We have appointed the next police chief in Southborough, Brian Newell. It was a unanimous vote. We had two very qualified candidates. We all had discussions with both of them afterwards. I can say that my discussion with with Sean was truly inspiring. He was so gracious about the whole process, thanked us profusely for the way the process was conducted, and absolutely reiterated his support for Chief Newell. So I feel that, check this one off, that we've done our job here, served the town well as far as the process we went through. It was thorough. And I am hoping that we've got a police chief for a long time. So next steps as far as what we need to do. So we now have a vacancy in the lieutenant position, which we also appoint. So once we get through the contract negotiations, have that signed, so delivered, we will move on to that. And as we know, Chelsea and Andrew are basically been appointed to lead that process. So we'll expect updates from you guys when you're ready. Anybody wants anything else about the police chief process? All right, members reports. So we're gonna start with Andrew in the St. Mark's Park Working Group.
Sure, so I'll just be brief. As people know, I serve on the St. Mark Street Park Working Group. And this is really as a follow-up to one of the meetings we had earlier last month. So to keep the select board informed of where we are on. The last meeting of the working group was on August 25th. And Michael Klukman, who is a landscape architect from PHB came, and based on a kind of priorities list that the working group had put together earlier, put forward 3 different sketches of possible park designs. And in advance of that meeting, I worked with town staff to put together some publicity of it and to advertise it more. And so at the meeting, Mr. Klukman, explained the thought process of his 3 designs. There was some comment on it. There was comment on it from the members of the working group and from the members of the public. And then at this point, I just wanted to come back and before doing anything further, just fill in the board about where we are. As you know, the archaeological study has begun. And I think it makes sense before doing anything further with the working group to wait and see what the results of that are. So that's what we stand. I really don't, the big picture questions that Ms. Fiore asked at the beginning, I really don't have answers to those bigger picture questions at this point, other than just as a takeaway from that meeting in August, I want to keep the board informed about what this working group is doing, and really maybe get some further instructions from the board collectively as we get into the next phase of things where we really don't know where they're going at this point, because we've got some other things that are in process at the time.
Well, there's clearly a critical path here, right? And I think the next step is to wait till we get the archaeological study, because I don't see how we move forward until we have the results of that and know what that means as far as the park. Anybody disagree with that?
No. Can I ask a question? So Andrew, is you move forward and after the dig is done and you discuss having, a public forum. Is your plan to get together as a group in advance of that forum to discuss, the format that you want to use? I think you're going to get a lot more people that are going to attend that, and just maybe think about how you guys want to circulate all of the information and, the plans and the takeaways that you got from the meeting on the 25th. So, do you plan to meet before you have a forum to kind of chart your path?
I really don't know. I wanted to get some further input from the rest of the board. There's a lot of questions about this whole project, as you know, and really a lot of the public comment at the working group meeting on the 25th, which also Sam attended, really wasn't so much about the designs as questions about the ownership of the land and the financing and everything like that. So really the charge of the working group was to just focus on proposed design. So I want to proceed deliberatively from here on out. And I really think that at this point, I think things are kind of premature until we find out what the results are of this.
I think the only reason I ask, Andrew, is I think you're going to get more people now that summer's over. People are home. I think there's going to be more interest in this from people that are really curious about, what the plan is going to be, what the park is going to look like. So that's why I asked. Just, I think you're going to have many additional people.
I also want to recognize Mr. Farrington, who is on the working group and did an excellent job of being someone that took all the different ideas of people on priorities for the park and ranking them in a certain way, so that I do think Mr. Klugman did a very good job of, based on this list, which was kind of diffuse. There were a lot of different priorities, some of them that were hard to reconcile, but by listening, he took a lot of time to listen to us, and there was a thought process between these three different designs. They're all pretty interesting, but at this point, I think we should just wait until we see what other conditions are there before scheduling another public forum or anything like that.
Thank you, Andrew.
I think we all agree. Ms. Malinowski.
Yes. Update on regional dispatch study. So I'm anticipating an agenda item on our next meeting, which would be September 20th, to discuss our interest or not in continuing to keep regional dispatch on the table. Every town that's been involved in the study has been asked to kind of say yay or nay to continuing. So I just wanted to put this on your radar and get you thinking about any questions that you may have for the 20th. So, and I would anticipate asking both chiefs to attend that meeting as well.
A question?
Yeah, sure.
Is there a working document from that group that you can distribute? I'm
Yes.
curious to know sort of the direction it's in. And I guess I would hope that the Foxborough option is on the agenda for discussion in that group as well, because I think that the experience visiting that site, it's an interesting thing to consider as part of this larger question. Whether this makes sense or not. So
Yeah, I think we can talk about that on the 20th.
Yeah.
Okay, so the tobacco regulations public hearing, this is more just a plug to let you know that we're updating our tobacco regulations through the Board of Health on September 19th. And that's a night meeting in this room. There'll also be Zoom capability. So I just want to let you know that that's happening. Dr. Alker has been working on that with our tobacco consultants and town council. So that's coming up just in case anybody's interested in that.
And that will include vaping, I assume.
Yeah. And then the next one, summer nights. So I just wanted to thank the Rec Commission, Friends of Recreation, all of the donors for Southborough Summer Nights, Public Safety for staffing the event. I don't think I've ever seen that many people at Summer Nights. The fireworks were great. And start, thank you. And it was a great event. I think everybody enjoyed seeing, at least the kids enjoyed seeing all their friends, and the parents enjoyed chasing all their kids around. But thank you to everyone who helps put that on. It was great.
I heard it was great too. Mr. Purple.
Thank you. So, just a couple of things. Just a note from the fire department. Probationary firefighter Tabitha Conway was sworn in today at 9 a.m. by the town clerk during a brief ceremony at the fire station. Congratulations to firefighter Conway bringing her on board. Look forward to great things from her. And as they look forward, probationary firefighter Adam Miller going to be sworn in this coming Friday, September 9th, 9 a.m. Same process by the town clerk during a brief ceremony at the fire station. So if anyone's able to attend, please, feel free to stop in. The other item I had on the agenda, the Attorney General has approved the bylaw changes that were passed and approved at the May 4th annual town meeting. That included the noise bylaw, changes to the Trails Committee, making that a statutory committee. Mr. Dennington's article requirements to hold a hearing when the board creates rules, regulations, and also the making capital improvement and planning committee a statutory committee. So I would suggest that at the meeting on September 20th, that the board may want to take actions to correct or to make the changes effective with the new bylaws for Trails Committee, Capital Improvement and Planning Committee, because you're going to have to dissolve one committee, move people over, and do those pieces. I also do want to point out that the Attorney General's office requested a 30-day extension for the pilot committee bylaw. They need some additional time to review that and had asked to speak to town council. So we'll wait to see the results of those discussions and of their review. So that's all that I have.
So we're done except for the power.
We're done with, process-wise, we're done except for that one piece, yes.
All right, consent agenda. So we've got several things on here, so I'm just going to ask, what does anyone want to hold? Before we vote?
A,
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Anybody else? I've got L.
I also hold L. Just the issue there is that I live on one of the streets that is the subject of the recommendation, and I spoke to Mr. Challoran earlier today. He advised it would be okay for me to participate, but just out of abundance of caution, I think I will recuse myself from that matter.
Okay. All right, so we got A, K, and L held. So can I have a motion to approve B through J?
so moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? 5-0. So everything's approved except for A, K, and L. Okay, A. Who had A? Sam?
I held it. And I got several, what I described as Scribner's corrections in that, and make an editorial comment that it seems to me we're getting a little too detailed in our minutes. So I would urge efforts to streamline those again, because they're just long, which was a while back. And I thought we talked about trying to make it more concise. On the August 9th meeting, line 181, Christy DeMary's name is misspelled. It's K-R-I, it's Christine with a K and D-A with lowercase n. Line 238 refers to declaration of independence. Should be a copy of the declaration. I don't think we have the original. And line 356, Mr. Hegarty's name is misspelled. That's it for that set of minutes for me.
Okay.
In 826, line 39, parking places instead of parking placed. And line 42, historical commission versus historic commission. And that's it for me.
I have one on those sets. Kathy, do you want Sam to do all his and then we'll
I'm
individually?
done. That's it for me.
Oh, okay. I just had one on the August 26th, line 58, where it says the board has done due diligence, the board has not. That was my comment.
I'm sorry. Okay, what line?
Line 58,
That's important.
yeah. So that was my only change.
So just bring it, we're not.
Put the word not, and
Hasn't done, has
Yep.
not done. Right.
that's it for me. Thank you.
I have a couple. I don't know if I'm speaking in return. Sorry, Chelsea.
No, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. On the minutes on the 9th, line 197, Kavanaugh begins with a K instead of a C. And on the August 26th minutes, line 95, I think the word conservation should be preservation. Preservation restriction rather than a conservation restriction. So those are the only two edits that I had.
Chelsea, I'm done. Okay, thank you. All right, can someone make a motion to approve all the minutes from 9th, 19th, 26th, and 30th as edited?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? 5-0. All right, we're all caught up with the minutes, which is very nice. Okay, the next one is K, which is the approval that Mr. Purple sent us to approve funds from the golf course revolving fund to fund improvements to try to keep the balls from crossing lettuce farm into people's yards. Okay, so before we get started, so Mark, Mr. Purple told me that you believe it should be a capital. Yeah. So can you explain why? To me, this is not a capital item. I know that mounts above the threshold, but you know, capital item, something that you would capitalize in accounting terms, you wouldn't capitalize it. So I don't know why this would be a capital item. I'm fine letting capital look at this. I don't really care, but I just don't see why it is a capital item per se.
Because you're making an investment into an asset that is going to be more than the threshold that we have in our
It's definitely more
process.
than threshold. I agree with one threshold. That's not the issue I've got. It's just, to me, it's more, you know, in county world, you've got repairs and maintenance, and you've got items that you literally capitalize, put on your books as an asset, right? Which is what the capital committee is going to look at. I don't care. I'm happy for them to look at it. So
Yeah.
what I thought we could do is maybe go ahead and approve this pending capital look at, so that we don't hold this up.
And just to be clear, I'm very supportive of this. This
Yeah.
needs
No,
to
I know you are.
happen,
No, I know
right?
you are.
It's
I
just
know.
a process
I don't
for
know.
me.
No,
So
I understand.
I'd be
I just
okay.
I don't know
I'd
what
be-
Jason thinks, or Ms. Melissa thinks, but in my accounting work, to me, it's not something that really falls on my purview. But again, I'm fine if I'm looking at
So
it.
I'm okay with approving the 6,000 tonight.
Yeah.
Under the threshold, go do the design, get started, because we want to do it before the end of
All right,
this
so that makes
year,
sense. Okay,
right?
They get that. So
Get
I'm not gonna
going.
hold this up by doing
No.
that. Okay.
So
let's go that
I
way.
would rather do the, and Mr. Purple can keep me honest here, but if we do the 6,000 tonight, capital at their next meeting can review the rest of the proposal.
Yeah.
And then we come back on the 20th and bless it.
If you keep getting it right, I don't have much of a job. Keeping you honest. But yes, that, I don't think it'll affect the timeframe.
Yeah.
If you allow the architect to go forward tonight with the design, capital is meeting on the 13th. I have asked the chair if he can put this on the agenda for consideration. Again, funding source is pretty definitive and everything, so just simply placing it you know, it's process, I think,
Yeah.
as Ms. Manos can discuss.
And it's a one-time, I think where it's a one-time, that's where I'm like getting hung up
And
on
then you
it.
can, and then the
I'm
board,
like
yeah,
this.
the
I don't
board
want
can
to
then take
discussion
up the
of
rest
what
of it on,
is-
the board can take up the rest of it on the
I'm
20th.
like, I
Okay.
just, to me, it's not everybody.
So,
So are we trying to get this done once the season ends?
So the goal is to, the golf architect feels that we can get it designed, bid, awarded, constructed before snow flies, which would mean that the improvements would get to sit under what we hope is 3 feet of snow for several months, and then we'll be ready for play when the season opens up in March.
3 feet of snow is what you're looking for?
I'm hoping.
All right, does that sound like a plan? So we're going to approve the design tonight, table the actual cost of the fix until capital has vetted it and then vote on that second. But this will at least keep the process moving. So that's what.
so why would we not just vote to approve the construction costs based on review of vetting by
So
capital?
I do it just pending
Yeah.
approval by capital. So
I don't
and
think we
be
need
done
to
with it,
discuss
and
it
be done
here.
with it.
That's just.
I would
my
just put, it- so here's my thought.
Okay.
Do a two-part,
I don't want to get in the habit of doing it conditional upon capital. Because I want to, and I'm not saying that this project,
I agree.
I just think it sets the wrong precedent.
I agree, but where we are looking to do this, I mean, we can throw it on the consent agenda at the next meeting.
That's what I mean.
So.
I think you're not, I think capital's meeting next week,
13th, isn't it?
and then, right, I should, yeah. And then we're meeting the next, if this is it, even if we approved everything tonight, you're not gonna do
So
anything
what I'm
before the
saying
20th.
is, so again, if you do the $6,000 tonight for the architect to get moving, capital does what it needs to do on the 13th. The rest of it can be brought back to you on the 20th and is not gonna get in the way of the time.
So I appreciate your thought there, concern, and no one would dictate that more than me. Remember, I was on the previous version of the capital committee, the monitoring report, and the reason that committee doesn't exist today is because of the very thing where they just got ignored. Now, I was already advisory when it actually went up as assigned to advisory, because it was ridiculous. What we were doing just truly was a waste of time. No one here was on the select board, so I'm not criticizing anybody here. And Bill admitted it. Bill Bowman said the same thing, he's on cap, we just got ignored. So I very much am sensitive to make sure that we show full appreciation to the current committee, and I think we have. I mean, they have done yeoman's work, done great work, and we absolutely have appreciated and supported what they've done. So I'm not in danger of going back to our old habits.
No.
But I appreciate what you're saying, as far as making sure we do. Okay, so it sounds like go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, so like, please correct me if I'm wrong. So there's an element of it, right, that you think that the $6,000 of it now could be greenlighted because it's really not really a,
It's under 10.
It's under 10, yeah.
it's under 10 and it's not really capital.
Well, it's probably one thing, so you can make.
Okay, all right, well, you can roll
but it's
it.
under capital. I'm not gonna make
Okay,
that argument, because I'm
all
gonna
right.
keep this going.
So we vote to approve the 6,000 and then the rest of it is just gonna come back on the 20th. might be on the
Right,
consent
vetted by
agenda.
capital.
And if in the packet, there's a recommendation from capital to do it, maybe it just goes on the consent agenda and
Yeah.
just gets approved that.
Correct. Just one other thing of note, and I think it's okay after talking to Mr. Purple this afternoon. Our max spend limit on that revolving account is 30K.
That was in the article?
Yeah.
That
It's in
is.
the revolving.
Oh,
account.
it was in the article this past
So
year.
what
Yeah.
has happened is that, the golf course did not become profitable. In terms of making until probably 2020, right? Because, we finally got things put back together, then the pandemic hit, and then, the circumstances created where it kind of got new legs, so to speak. And so, again, there is money that comes back to the town through the management contract. It goes into a revolving fund, which can only be spent on the golf course. So it has to go back into the course. And we haven't had a lot in there. So that amount has never been adjusted. Nothing has ever been spent from there. So this is the first thing. So when it was pointed out to me, it's 30, I said, well, this is great, because we're looking for 30.
Right, but if we know it's about 30, and if we have to take more, we know how to do that too. So
Right,
it's
I'm
not like.
I'm just making sure everybody's aware
That we have to take.
this
what
is
is
This is
that?
24, right,
This is it.
24, I think
We
that
all have to
obviously that should be increased, yes.
Are we comfortable that it's not going to be, we're not gonna breach the 30 mark?
Yes. This project inclusive, I was asking for the 30. Because that is what I needed, not necessarily because that is what the limit was. So if we needed more, then there would have been multiple requests that also asking for the board to consider increasing the limit.
Correct, that's
Which
where I
then
was
I would
going.
need to go to advisory and ask the same thing, you know,
Fair
and
enough.
have that concurrence in the middle of the year.
Okay, I'm good.
Anybody else?
I'm fine either way, let's keep it moving.
All right, so let's keep it moving. Okay, so I'll make the motion. So motion is to approve $6,000 out of the golf revolving fund to fund the initial design of tee box 6 and 7 to move it so that we can stop people from slicing balls over to let us woman.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, so the 6 is approved. All right. Okay, the last one that was held, one that I helped, which is the approval of the capital committee recommendations for fiscal year 23 street maintenance. I just didn't want this one to slide through on because I think it's really, really important. This is a real positive step for getting our roads back in shape. This is the first time we spent money on normal roads since 19. So this one has gone through a good process with capital. Capital has vetted Ms. Gallagher's recommendations. Everybody saw those.
Yep.
We've got about, we think, $1.3 million or so in road funds between chapter 90 and what's in the various open road town warrant articles. And I say about because there's still a little bit of uncertainty as far as the various streets contract because there's a change order that's gone through that. So we think it's about $1.3 million roughly. So what capital wanted to do is they want to make sure there's enough projects that are teed up so that if the bid comes in better than expected, we can spend it all, right? So I did a spreadsheet today that basically amplified what was in the packet that everybody got, that matrix that Gallagher did, because Lover's Lane wasn't on that. I talked to Mr. Malinowski and he agreed with what I was doing, and I sent him the spreadsheet and he has, is he in the audience right now? Yes, he is. So I'm sure he's going to raise his hand if he disagrees with what I'm about to say. So anyway, it looks like it's about $1,452,000 based on Ms. Gallagher's estimates as far as what it's going to cost to do these set of roads that were in your packet. All right, so let's just read it so everybody knows what we're doing. Parkerville Road, North Chestnut Hill Road, East Main, Winchester, Walker, Upland, which are all kind of together. William Onthank, Carolyn, Ted, Brookside, Parker Cottage, Hammond, Oak Portable, Harris Street, and Lovers Lane. Everybody agree?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So what Capital and Ms. Gallagher are looking for tonight is for us basically to approve the issuing of the RFP to this roadway.
I'm sure.
Oh, so Andrew, look at this.
Sorry, one other item, I think it's important, after the approved streets, was the note from capital that if more money becomes available or the bid comes in better than expected, capital would recommend adding Davis and Ashley into the bid.
And I put this, guys, I'm showing everybody, so I put that, so that,
Okay.
so Ms. Purple is correct, so just to, get on what you said, so if, we're fortunate and inflation has, started going the other way, and we get a bid that's even less than what Ms. Gallagher thinks that the next two up, are Ashley and Davis. Okay. This is your friend.
Well, I don't necessarily know that that was particularly the discussion. I mean, we went
What's
on.
in her memo, that's where we're getting this.
Capital talked about that.
Well, we talked about different streets, Sam, and then we came up with the list that we have, and I don't know that we, and again, Jason's here, he can certainly correct me. I don't know that we specifically continued down that list after Lover's Lane. So again, not to say that those wouldn't be the streets or couldn't be the streets that came on, I just wanna. Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, I see you're out there.
So the
Okay,
one
his
thing.
hand is
yeah,
up.
the
I
one-
just want
yeah,
to be
the
clear
one-
that,
I'm sorry, the one thing from the memo from Mr. Malinowski is that they concurred with the list
yeah,
that was provided that the chair read. And then also, just to correct what I said, is that after much conversation, the committee voted unanimously to accept the recommendation plus adding Lover's Lane to the bid package. So it
Correct.
was not,
So where did, because I've got Davis Ashley too someplace.
well,
Karen
yes, you
put that
do,
in a
but this
memo
is, that's
someplace.
from Ms. Galligan's
Okay.
memo.
All right.
Right.
And
I just want to be clear that we're stating the right thing. So Jason put his hand down, but Jason, do you want to?
So Lisa,
Oh, he's moved over. Okay, again, Kathy, I just want to be clear that when we're saying
if
that's
Davis and
something.
Ashley do come, if we're lucky enough to get a, really favorable contract, then Davis and Ashley would have to be vetted by capital.
Correct.
Or it really would.
As with the other roads that are on the list. Yep. Jason, are you there?
Yeah, Lisa, your recollection is correct. Our motion was around specifically the chart plus lovers. We have had many conversations about Davis, and if we end up in the Davis Ashley discussion, I think we're going to be very fortunate as a town, right? Because we already are projecting that we're $200,000 over bid. So if we end up there, I think we'll all be very happy. But it's probably worth a formal vote if we get to that point. Our focus was, if you remember, we were trying to pare down the list even more, and we kind of cut our losses because, we didn't want to just get to the 1-3.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
And again, Kathy, not to say that those wouldn't be the next two. I'm not comfortable saying they'll be the next two without going through the process with
Well,
Kathy.
I wanted him to say it, Mr. Purple said it, and then I chimed in. So,
and then I quickly corrected myself, so.
Thank you, Mr. Malinowski.
Okay, and so the motion is to approve the RFP for the roads that were voted on by capital, which include Lover's Lane.
So move.
Second, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? All right, 4-0-1. Come on back, Mr. Dean. Okay, next one.
Thank you for coming.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
so as you guys know, we decided, I guess, last year to have select board hours, that's the first year. So we decided, when we first started meeting in May, that we were going to resume these in the fall. So here we are. So tonight we're going to set the schedule and how to do it in December. So anybody want to make proposals what they think is appropriate, how you did it? I'm not sure how you guys decided to do it.
We just did it on the off Tuesday because the townhouse was open later for one thing, and it was, when we were meeting in person, it was easier for people to come in. That's how it
2 at a
became
time?
Tuesday.
Yeah, 2 at a time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone think that should be changed? And seriously, Mr. Cybers goes to the transfer station every single Saturday, and he has a lot of people that come up and talk to him. So I think that this is a really good thing to do, and I hope we.
That's just because they're there already.
Well, that's true, that's true. But
This, Kathy, when we instituted doing this again, it was done years ago. And when we brought it back, it was extremely successful. I think, Sam, we've said it a few where, if somebody's got something to say, it gives them the opportunity to do it. And I think we've had some great conversations with people.
And it varies certainly, but I think it's important to do, even if nobody shows up. I think it's a great opportunity for people, and it's not a huge cost in terms of time, an hour or so.
Yeah.
so it's an hour.
Yeah.
We did it 2 hours, I think, when we started, and then we found.
Yeah.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's here, it's here in the townhouse, right, 6 to 7?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I assume you have some kind of sign-up sheet as far as who can do it on a particular Tuesday?
Yeah, we came up with a schedule.
Yeah, we just came up, everybody kind of set marks and dates, and we just were fair to, everybody in their time.
Okay, so it sounds like we've got a plan. Anything else we can talk about?
I think that's fine.
All right, so I guess to make this formal, can I have a motion to reinstate select board hours on the off Tuesdays?
Off Tuesday, just that we did it one, we could do it 2.
Yeah, right. We only did it one.
Oh, we only off
Once a month.
Tuesday.
Once a month,
Okay, so the second Tuesday?
second Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, every other Tuesday. Okay, so I will correct my motion. So motion to reinstate select board hours to start ASAP on the off Tuesday. Okay, off Tuesday. Yeah.
Well, okay.
well, we'll have to get going pretty quick. So as soon as we get going, okay. So I wouldn't wait till October. So
No, I
let's
think
do it.
do it,
Yeah.
especially with town meeting coming up too. You may have people that have
Yeah, so
questions
let's,
on
yeah,
the warrant,
9:13 would be
so-
the first one.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll leave it to you two to.
Sure.
Second,
Second. Yeah.
all right, all in favor? All right, so it's like 4 hours, we're back. All right, ARPA. So everybody should have the packet, the most up-to-date ARPA spreadsheet. I know it's a little small, but. Okay, so we're going to table, there's 4 items listed on the agenda. We're going to table 3 and 4. We're going to talk about those on the 20th because those relate to what we want to do with some of the town meeting articles. Do we want to push those costs through the levy? Do we want to push them to ARPA? So we're going to make that decision on the 20th. So tonight we're just going to talk about the first 2, which is the $15,000 for the crosswalk from Sanofi to the new Peninsula Trail, and then $42,000 for a new UTV for the fire department. Okay, so we heard Kat McKee talk about the 15,000. Does anybody want to talk about that any further? Capital has vetted it. They have approved it. They have recommended it. Kat sent us a nice email describing when it was going to happen, how it's going to happen. So I think she's got this under control. She knows what she's got to do to get the proper approvals. Ms. Galvin's going to work with her as far as DOT approvals. So I think everybody's done what we've asked them to do to get us to this point tonight.
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
Has town council looked over the agreement with Santa Point? Santa Point,
I'm not sure we have an agreement.
I don't think we have an agreement.
I think that she's working on that. I don't think.
Okay, so that's something that will take place, that there'll be a conversation
They
to
will have to,
memorialize this?
yes.
Okay, that's fine, that's it. I'm good.
So you could treat this the same way that you treated, for example, I think the website redesign is that, you need more information. So you're gonna reserve that amount of money. I don't know whether,
I mean, I'm fine approving it as
Okay.
long as council has no issues with it. I mean, I think it's been vetted.
I think her memo truly outlined it really nicely as far as what the steps are. So I've got confidence that she's going to take the appropriate steps and make sure that it's done correctly. Now, what we can do too, if you look at your spreadsheet, remember that we originally was 194K put into the Peninsula Trail grant per the ARPA committee recommendation. Once they got their 50K grant from the state, we moved 50 down to the bottom line. So that's where it is. So I would suggest moving 15 of that 50 back up to the
Okay.
trails rather than take it out of the overall tax levy. I mean, we have 2 ways to do it. To not take it out of the tax levy reduction bucket, but put it back into the trails bucket.
Yeah.
So that 50 now goes to 35 at the bottom.
This makes sense. Yeah.
This one thing, Kathy, that's where you were talking so fast, I'm just not.
Sorry. Okay, so when we approved the money for the Peninsula Trail, there was a 194K in change that we thought it was going to cost. That's what was in the ARPA committee recommendation.
Minus 50. for the-
Not yet, so 194, okay? Then they got the grant of 50K. So we approved 144 and change because we knew they had the 50 from the
Yes.
state. So we reduced the ARPA recommendation from 194 to 144, okay? And then we took that 50 and put it at the bottom for a select board to have a chance to appropriate some money, right? So it's sitting down there in our bucket right now. And so I'm saying I would recommend taking 15K out of that bucket, putting it back up in the ARPA committee recommendations. So restoring that
Okay.
144 back to 159.
I think that makes sense to me, then I'll explain it that way. Yes.
Well, the accountants groups seem to get it. So
It really has to do with how much money is left over after the ARPA.
Well, we have 2 choices. So we could do another, we could take it out of that general bucket to just reduce the tax levy. But I think it should come back out of where it was intended to come out.
Originally, trails.
to begin with.
Yeah. I agree.
It makes more sense to me.
Yep.
Oh, okay, general property tax.
And then trying to stay with our committee, so far we stayed with the recommendation. We haven't gone outside the recommendations yet, so we've kind of gone down the list. Okay. Now, does that make more sense?
Yes, it does, thank you.
Okay. All right, any further discussion before we go to this one? Okay, can someone make a motion to approve the 15K, up to 15K?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? 5-0 to allocate 15K from our ARPA money to build the crosswalk. So Kat McKee is in the audience, so hopefully that makes her happy. That part's done. Okay. The next one is one that Lisa asked to be put on the agenda tonight. And so Lisa, I'm going to let you explain this.
Perfect. So, and if we could bring Chief Achilles over as well. So I just wanted to first explain the genesis of why I asked to bring this forward. About a month ago, there was an accident on one of the trails, and there was a Southborough resident that was hurt and was stuck on the trail for a while, and Westboro had to send a UTV. So I was saddened, you know, that we would have a resident that even 2 minutes, 5 minutes longer lying on the ground for anybody in pain, I view was not a good thing. The UTV is on the capital plan. It hasn't thoroughly been vetted yet, but it is on the capital plan. Why I thought it was important to at least start the discussion on this tonight was we just invested over $200,000 in trails. And to me, this is another investment in the trails, and it's an investment in safety. It's a public safety issue. It doesn't necessarily just need to be used for accidents on trails. I mean, there are other uses for this. So my point of bringing it forward is for the board to at least consider looking at this prior to being on the capital plan for annual town meeting. I will tell you, having a scanner, it scared the bejesus out of me, listening and knowing that there was a resident and they were hurt pretty good and they were lying there. So that was the genesis of this bringing it forward. I reached out to Chief Achilles. I said, can we talk about this a little bit? Can you give me some more information? You know, the costs and a little bit about, and unfortunately it didn't make the packet. It was an error, but Vanessa, can you put on the screen the actual cost of the UTV? It's on the capital plan for $35,000, and the cost actually, obviously, like with anything else through COVID, now sits at $41,800. And there's some information about it. Chief, I'm going to let you jump in, and I'm sure there's going to be questions. I just wanted to kind of set the plate as to why I wanted the board to consider not waiting till annual town meeting. You know, this is another extension as far as I see, and again, I'm one of 5. It's an extension of potentially ARPA that we've already made a huge investment in trails. We just voted another $15,000 tonight. So I think this piece is important. So Chief, if you want to jump in and just give some additional feedback, and I'm sure you can answer some of the questions that people have. I'm not specifically asking tonight. Well, I initially was, but then someone brought to my attention it hasn't thoroughly been vetted through capital. It's on the capital plan. So my suggestion is if the board is supportive of even considering potentially bringing this forward, we send it to capital and ask them to vet it prior to town meeting. Okay, Chief.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Spelled it out.
The UTV has been on the capital agenda for a couple of years. We have moved it around a little bit. There is a need, and last year we put together a fact sheet over what we're looking at, and I can forward that again to the members of the select board if they need to. A couple of real quick highlights. I think member Braccio brought this to attention is we have 14 square miles of land, miles and miles of trails. We have 350 acres of conservation and open land. And I think a lot of people forget we have over 2,000 acres surrounding the Sudbury Reservoir. And we are responsible for that. I know I use the trails. I know a lot of people use the trails. And the initial discussion was we need access. It was brought to light even more so in addition to what Lisa had mentioned this August. In addition to the Beals Preserve incident where we had an injury out in the middle of the preserve between Redgate and Main Street. We went to Marlborough for a multi-acre, multi-day fire, which all access eventually turned into UTVs. And we also had a fire on the 23rd of August on the Marlborough
Southborough line off of Acre Bridge. And I think everybody is aware that we've had some severe storm events. The most recent, which doesn't seem like a big storm event, was on the 6th of this month, where we had large trees come down on Atwood at Harris, and we had limited to no access for apparatus. So we looked at other avenues to get access to some of these areas at a much higher cost, and we think even now it's even more important to get the UTV. The Beals Preserve incident, Westboro was fortunate; they were available, and they were able to drive their UTV to the site, and it took over half an hour from the incident being called in till we had somebody available to extricate her with the UTV. It does make sense. We could have driven it there in like 5 minutes. So that's important. There's other needs for it. Manpower moving during storms. Again, woods and wildland fires, which seem to be extremely prevalent this year. We also we'd like to use it for events in place of ambulances and fire trucks or pickups, so that we can have readily accessible and without taking units out of service. So I will say this was in front of Capitol before. I think they can vet it again this year. We're putting it on this year. I know Mr. Malinowski's in the crowd. I think it's been vetted. I think it's extremely valuable asset that would extend our capabilities. I would support if this could move forward sooner than later. I would appreciate that. I think the residents would appreciate it. And I'll answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Chief. So, Lisa, my first question to you is, since you're on Capitol, are you saying that this is on the capital plan for fiscal year 24?
Yes.
So it's a question, it's either now or next spring?
Well, yeah, we'll go through the discussion process, obviously. With
But
Capitol.
at least it's tentatively
It is
on
on
the fiscal year 24 plan right now?
It is.
Okay. All right, so that's my question. Chelsea.
So I more have a comment, I think, as it relates to the ARPA process. So this has merit to move forward, but it didn't get put in as part of the ARPA committee review.
Correct.
And my concern is that if we agree that this should move through the ARPA committee, the ARPA process, we haven't disposed of all of the items that came from ARPA, whether they were approved or not. It's not like this was not approved by ARPA. It wasn't put in through the process. So my concern is that we're opening up a can of worms by taking this kind of before we know what we have left over of what we agree or disagree with from the ARPA recommendation.
So I hear you. What we could do is, if we think this is related to the trails, we could use the rest of that, the 35K that's left in the trails, and put that back in and, you know, basically look at as part of the trails allocation. Or we could use that general bucket that we've got to reduce taxes. Remember, what we're looking for in that bucket is one-shot things, because we don't want to pick something that is going to recur, because then you've got what you're trying to do, you know, with the budget, right?
Yeah.
So this is a one-shot thing, so it does fit the bill for that. Okay.
Mhm.
So I hear you, but I think, you know, there's that bucket, and then we could pay for most of it through the, you know, this restoring the trails money back to 194K, because this could be looked at as an enhancement to the trails, given what caused us to discuss this tonight. Okay. So I'm not sure if you buy that. Now, this one is clearly a capital item. So, you know, to kind of jump to the next issue, which is, do we want to do what we decided to do with the golf course tees, which is not doing anything tonight, let capital look at this on the 13th.
Yep.
Let us know what, you know, they recommend or not, and then vote on it on the 20th. We could do that, or we could do what we discussed as alternative, which is vote on this, approve it pending capital improvements, which you know what you like. But anyway, we could, right? Okay, so sounds to me like, you know, we need this, it's on the capital plan anyway, that's questions is timing here as far as when to do it. All right, so Sam,
I remain unconvinced, actually.
so go.
I think that, you know, an incident on the trail is a real red herring. I don't think we can afford to be prepared for any possible incident out there. If we have an accident someplace where we need a helicopter to lift somebody out, I don't think we have to mind helicopters. I think if the issue, I think safety on the trail is important. But I think, for example, if we bought a dirt bike, you could get an EMT to any location on the trail very quickly. Might take a little longer to get somebody extricated and get Westboro or Marlboro or somebody else to get the UTV in here. So it seems to me that this is nice to have, but there are other ways to get this done. So I'm happy to continue to think about it. But I not support the expenditure at this point.
Tonight.
Yeah, or unless I hear more ever. That's, but I'm willing to continue to think about it.
Does the chief want to, does he have any comment to what Sam said?
I respectfully disagree.
I'm happy to follow up with you, chief, happy to talk with you more about it later.
Yeah. Again, we have responsibility for a lot of town, and I think that there's an expectation that first, we wouldn't be asking or requesting this item in capital or otherwise if it was a nice to have. It's consistent with our community risk assessment. We have a responsibility for a large section of undeveloped and difficult access areas. You're correct. If we needed a helicopter, we wouldn't be requesting a helicopter. But I think there's an expectation that if that Woods fire that was in Marlboro was in Southborough, there's an expectation we'd get access out there. If somebody's injured on the trails off Clemens on the reservoir in Southborough, I think there's an expectation that Southborough will respond and extricate them. We can wait for mutual aid resources, and it's very similar to the discussion of the tender. We can wait, and I think it's my responsibility as the fire chief to communicate that. I don't think it's in the best interest of the community to wait. But if it's a policy decision of the board to wait, then it's been explained what our limitations are.
I do have great respect for the chief's opinion. I'm happy to talk with you more about it. You know, again, follow up later.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also not prepared to support this tonight. There's another possibility that I have thought of here, which is that, you know, if, let's say this request came before the pandemic and before there was ARPA and all that, this strikes me as something that might be on like a capital article, and also given some of the private schools' interest in helping with donations that are tied to discrete pieces of capital equipment that have a public safety angle. Is there also a possibility that this could be funded through a private donation? I mean, the idea came to me just as I was, you know, listening to the discussion. So I'm curious what other members.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so just to be clear, you're not prepared to vote because you want to explore other funding opportunities
also-
versus.
A little bit of it is that, and also just that I don't think there was anything in the packet for this coming up to this, so that I simply didn't know the full background about this. I will say that about a year ago, I remember someone asking me about if there's a way that, this is a vague recollection, of whether the town could buy something like this, but I think it was more for helping to build the trails and things like this, so something that was not really a public safety. When you're talking about, this is one that would be housed at the fire department, right? It would be used just for public safety, used for, I mean, Sam, one thing that, you know, she pointed out that also useful in some of these brush fire incidents, things like that are probably gonna have a more increasing frequency. So that's the idea. This would really be the fire department would be responsible for the maintenance of it and all that. So it's really just needing a little bit more time to think about it. For me, anything like this on ARPA or it's just hard for me to vote for in the first meeting. It's more the second meeting, or second or third meeting.
And
Or
again,
if I have
Andrew,
time to think about it.
the only reason I brought it forward is I wanted the board to consider this. You know, I think there's a lot of reasons, and, you know, unfortunately, it didn't make the packet. The information was.
Understood.
So again, all I was really asking was for the board to consider, you know, to ask capital to, you know, to talk about this. Funding source, I mean, obviously you can wait until annual town meeting, but again, hearing and knowing what happened that day and thinking it could happen again, and if it was my child, not an adult like that, and I'm not trying to put the emotion on this, I'm just telling you, it scared the bejesus out of me that day. When I heard all of this going on and knowing somebody was truly hurt, and, you know, knowing it was on the capital plan. If we hadn't heard anything about this, I might have felt different. So all I'm asking is for this board to consider sending it potentially to capital, you know, to consider ARPA as a funding source, because whether it comes through ARPA or it goes through town meeting, it's either going to hit the tax rate or you're going to be able to offset it through ARPA, which I think with the investment we've made on the trails makes sense. So I'm
Well, I appreciate.
not
you
trying to
bringing it
change your
forward.
mind. My hope is that we can continue this discussion and we can do this before potentially town meeting.
So how about this, given it wasn't in the packet, why don't we table this for tonight? Let's ask capital to basically vet it. Let, you know, capital write us a memo like they do when they vote on saying they can get their opinion as far as the need for it, et cetera. And then we take it up again as soon as we get that memo. And that way we haven't jumped over capital in this one, right?
Yep.
So Ms. Melnoff will be happy.
Yep.
We can then spend some more time figuring out how to fund it if we don't want to use ARPA. There's some choices here for us.
Fair enough.
Besides just actually text them. So give us some time to think through that too. Okay, but Lisa, totally appreciate your concerns. My gosh, so I didn't understand why this was being done here. Now I do, and that is very concerning. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for coming tonight.
Thank you for your consideration, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, Ken.
Mr. Carrington, come on up.
Hi, Grant Barrington, Dave Flag Road. This is an interesting discussion. Thank you. I agree with your decision to send it to capital first. I do have concerns that Ms. Malinowski raised about you created an ARPA committee to think of the best use of the ARPA funds, and this was not on there. And I understand that it's a kind of a last minute request, but I personally don't see the urgency why this significant capital investment can't just come forward as a capital item at town meeting. I mean, I understand that it's a serious incident, but I think we should be thinking perhaps longer term rather than just responding to hopefully one-off incidents in the moment. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're done with ARPA. So we used 15K more tonight. All right, so we're getting there. Okay, so now we're going to discuss the warrant again for 1013. So, you know, we've got to vote no later than September 20th on all these articles, right? So we are definitely running out of time here. So I thought we could try to maybe get this some that I think are done and easy and non-controversial. Nice, we can at least say we knocked off a few. But when we get to, there's one that's coming off. So where there's 14, sorry, we're going to have 13 for the night. So yeah, for sure. Okay, so everybody agree with the plan that we're going to go through this real quick and then decide whether we can go ahead and vote tonight to get some of the votes done. So we feel like we're getting something done here. Okay. All right, I assume, go ahead.
Before, just a question. So obviously we take a vote on something tonight, then in the printed warrant, there's a potential to have that in the warrant, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Which is a laudable goal.
And I know from Mr. Purple's standpoint, if we, for those that we, is this really the last opportunity to have the select, okay, you could
We
still.
got the 20th too, and advisory's asked for another night too, so he's probably gonna go to the printer on the 22nd.
The 20th though is when you're signing the warrant.
Yeah, so we got the night of the 20th,
So-
next meeting to also vote.
Yeah.
And get the vote in there.
It's gonna be in its final version, you're walking out of your meeting on the 20th.
Including the votes. I thought it's more like the text of the articles.
The text, well,
What he's asking, Mark, is
Yeah.
can we get our votes still in there if we vote on the 20th?
you could vote yes, you could vote on the 20th.
Okay, because
And
there's
advisory's
somewhere, I
not
think I
voting
know
till
where I
next night
stand,
either, so.
right, but it may be.
I mean, for example, the two big articles, Article 1 and 2 from planning board, that's the draft language as exists now. They're still going through the hearing process. I mean, at some point, you're gonna have to cut off where they are, in the next week or so. But that's simply where they are right now, so I don't know if you take a position on that yet.
So we're not on one, we know that. 2, which is the scenic trees,
Scenic roads.
Scenic trees, scenic roads,
They're
right?
all scenic.
Yeah, scenic walls. Okay, did anyone watch the planning board meeting from last week where they talked a lot about the scenic roads article? I thought Ms. Houlihan did a great job as far as the work she's done and then the way she explained it. So I assume that what's in here now reflects everything that she's done at this point. It looks like it does.
This is the last article that the town planner, it's the last version she submitted to me. I don't have a new version yet.
Okay, so now correct me if I'm wrong, and we've got someone from the planning board here tonight that could help correct this. If you look at Article 2 right now and the roads that are listed, that's not all of the potential roads. This is where Marty has gone around and looked at all the roads, at least half of them, or a big portion, to try to determine what really is scenic and what's not, rather than just do a carte blanche, everything that could be scenic, which is what was in the article for town meeting. Am I right, Mr. Murray?
Marty did go around and take a look at.
You need to come, sorry.
My fault.
Here at 58.5. Marty did go around and she got to about 2/3 of the roads that are listed on the scenic roads warrant article. She was using some criteria that she was asked to look at other towns in terms of coming up with a definition. What makes a scenic road? Is it a tree? Is it a stone wall? Is it some other feature? So she created a grid where she sort of marked which, of the roads had those things. She got through about 2/3 of them. But the planning board decided to reject that we're not going to get into the definition of what makes a scenic road. Because it turns out that scenic is maybe a poor choice of words for the
All right, so it's
law.
in the eye of the beholder.
Right.
So they're going to, you believe the final article is just going to say, pick up everything that wasn't already approved as Sync Road in 78 that is eligible. So you're going to basically do the same thing that was on the article warrant for.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so I misunderstood. I thought
And the
that-
reason is from an administrative perspective, it would be much easier for the town to do that right now. So, right, and if you get into definitions, you can get kind of fancy and get into a whole lot of other things. This is really just to designate them as scenic, and that way it can be handled more readily by the planning department.
And while you're here, so do you know what your schedule, the planning board schedule is as far as trying to close out the hearing and finalize the 2 articles?
Well, I can't say that I know. I mean, I know it's on our next agenda, but I don't know if there's.
When is that meeting?
I think the 12th.
All right, so we'll stay in touch.
Uh,
Okay. Okay,
I have a related question about Article 1.
okay.
Okay, I don't know if this is out of turn, but I guess. I just haven't had the time to go back and do this, to take the Article 1, which is in here, and compare it to what was in the printed warrant for the annual town, just to see what, if any, changes there are against that. And I don't know, Debbie, if you,
That would be helpful.
yeah, even if there was just like a bullet point, here's the changes, if any, that were against.
Yeah, we had a version in our packet that Mimi had been keeping up with the changes since the warrant. You must not have received that, but it is in the planning board Dropbox. And The main difference, as far as I know, is really the, I guess, small wording around select board as tree warden and the tree warden designee. So just those kind of, as our policy has evolved, to kind of update it with the policy. We've learned a lot actually since the town meeting. And also some of these changes having to do with the legislative act that the select board is the tree warden, and we have currently a designee. So it's really kind of very light changes as far as I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And I just don't remember whether for the annual town meeting, did the select board, and it was a different select board then, did we take a position on it, or was it at town meeting and then it got postponed?
At town meeting.
Okay, it was at town meeting, so we haven't, so this would really be the first.
Since annual town meeting, since it got postponed.
What did we decide?
I think it was,
We decided not to decide, and then the town meeting
So you
decided
never
not to decide.
we took a position prior
Did?
to town meeting.
That's
At
what
town
I
meeting.
think it was no, right?
I think it was,
I think it was split, whatever it was.
Okay.
I want to say
But I'm with
more than
Pearson.
1 or 3 to 2. Yeah.
A lot of times under the prior chairmanship of planning board, they leave the hearing open right up to town meeting. And sometimes we'll meet day of town meeting to determine what they finally want to do. So that the board, will sometimes just leave it as at town meeting, because as of the printing of the warrant, you're not quite sure where it's gonna end up.
Yeah,
Thank you. Maybe. Okay, number 3, Ms. Melanowski, where do we stand as far as trying to get a number in here?
Mr. Purple,
Happy to help.
thank you.
Mr. Purple.
The bids, my understanding, the bids from MAPC, were closed and received today. So hopefully that information should be coming out from MAPC to the participating community sometime next week.
Pretty close.
So we'll have a number, yes. Or we'll have the information to be able to apply it.
Isn't that all we're missing for that one?
Yes.
I
Yes.
think it's the number, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think the article is probably, unless you want to do anything with the wording, the article is probably good.
Well, the
The
only
motion
reason,
is going to be where the money's.
right, but we're still going to talk about how we want to fund these things. We still got it, we've got an opportunity to maybe do something different. So we're still going to have that conversation. So I don't want to vote on it yet till we really know where we're going.
Right.
And, we're still waiting to try to understand where we are with fiscal year 23 tax rate. Okay, number 4, Mr. Purple.
We will have something for town meeting. I do, we think have an agreement in principle. And now that needs to be memorialized and then ratified by both the fire union and also by this board. Prior to town meeting, it's anticipated they'll have a document to review and ratify on September 20th. That's great.
So they go first, he goes first, and we go, and then
Yes.
town goes.
Yes.
All right, that's good news. All right, the next one, I think is a simple one. I don't know what else we can say about this. We're just adding $10,000 to the warrant article that funds the deductible on the property insurance each year. Okay. Anybody have any issue with going ahead and at least saying we can approve this one? Okay, so we know we did something. We got one out of the way. Okay, no further discussion on this one? Okay, so I've got a motion to basically approve Article 5, which is adding $10,000 to the insurance deductible warrant article.
Support.
Support.
Second.
You think I would know that by now? Okay, yes, so we got a motion, we got a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? 5 vote to support that one. Okay. Number 6 is the easements to do the charging stations. And remember, this one's been broad to not only pick up at the public safety, but also if we want to do others around town, library, et cetera, we won't have to come back and do it. This will allow that to happen too. So basically approving what's needed now and then also what might be needed in the future to do similar charging stations. Agree with that?
Yes.
All right. You ready to vote on this one? Yeah. Okay. So Andrew, from this point, can you make the motions? Okay,
Sure.
So we're saying that Sandy do seconding, so we're done with this fast. Okay, go ahead.
So I move that we support at town meeting Article 6 as shown in the draft warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0, Article 6. Okay, Article 7. Who was working on this one?
Andrew and I.
Okay, all right, I thought it was Sam corrected me.
So really, Lisa found, gets the credit here for finding someone, and this is based on the Winchester town bylaw. And it was a bylaw that called for the town meeting to be in, I believe, the first week of November. But then it had to have an additional sentence talking about what in a year in which there's an election, you do this, that, the other thing. So that's the reason why you see the language there. We thought that rather than November, avoid that election problem, call for it in October on a date to be selected. I think that, we've seen from our process that we come out of the summer. Now this is the first meeting in September. It's probably later than October. It's probably better than earlier than October, but just let each individual board decide. I mean, it's just one sentence, but it's pretty consequential because it will permanently establish a fall town meeting. And I think the idea is that it would be kind of a relief valve so you don't have a 3-night annual town meeting, which, exhausts people. The challenge will be sometimes there won't be anything super duper interesting or controversial. So, like this fall, we'll see what the, attendance is at this one. But then definitely for cases where there's been, like an idea floating around for a long time, non-fiscal, there's like a standing opportunity for it to show up. And I think the idea is this is the meeting, there'll be a 1 night.
So I think, what if we don't need it to?
That's my only thing. What if we truly don't need it? There's nothing coming out of the annual and it's just really nothing to have a meeting for. How do we not have a meeting?
Based on this, this would say that we have to.
I know.
Could we make it at the discretion of the select board? The select board may.
As required or something. I don't know why we couldn't, Andrew.
Okay, so then,
There shall be a
then it's
fall
not
town
really,
meeting.
then what's the idea? We don't really, we don't
Well, I
even
think
need
that
the
the
bylaw.
intent of having a fall town meeting was to shorten the annual town meeting and take some of the non-budgetary items off. And yeah, you're not always gonna have a tree bylaw that's out there, correct? But I think if we looked at town meeting in the annual as a whole, there were things in there we probably could have put off until the fall.
And this gives the moderator the flexibility when he's
Right.
up there. So I think this is the right thing to do so he knows this is there, right? So he can look at the time, see where it's going and basically just suggest. He can't suggest that without this there. He can't say, well, we're gonna have a special town meeting. It's not decided then. So I like the idea of doing this, but I do think in the case where we really don't have a good enough reason to have it, that we've got to have some. release
So
out there.
does the word shall allow you to not have to do it instead of saying there will be a fall town meeting, where it says there shall be a fall town
Shall
meeting?
sounds like rule to me.
Yeah.
So-
I don't
I
know.
think it's
Maybe we can ask
Jay,
council.
yeah, I mean, again, it's not like he's got a lot on this particular article to look at as far as language,
No,
so.
this is such an easy one, my gosh.
Yeah.
I just think you've got to have the ability to not do it if there's
Agreed.
no reason.
I
to do it.
completely
And then other than
agree.
that, I oppose it.
Question for Jay may be, can the select board determine that? So the select board may determine that there shall be.
So maybe one of you two or Mark call Jay and say, help us here as far as making sure we don't have to do it, if we don't need to do it. That we know that it's there and know how it's going to do, when it's going to be, if we do it, which probably we will.
That's fine. We'll take care of it.
I mean, 3-day town meetings are hard.
Yeah.
So,
Two
two are hard, but 3 are really hard.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Hey, again.
Hello.
Well, first, thanks, Andrew and Lisa. I think it's a great idea to have a standing town meeting in the fall. I think hopefully it can simplify the process moving forward. One thing I did want to ask about was, I believe a few years ago, the town had voted to request that town meetings be on Saturdays. And I know that during COVID and everything, that we kind of went back to weeknights. I think the first, was it 2020 was the one in Neary
Yeah.
in the field there was on a Saturday
Yeah.
morning, I think, but obviously this year, this year's town meeting was 2 very long nights that went up until, 11:15 or whatever, both nights pretty much, so.
So the bylaw does say what you said. It
Yeah.
is supposed to be the last Saturday in March. And that was done at the request of a lot of parents who had children in sports programs that started in April, May. Had
Okay.
trouble getting there. So that's the end of sports. So that was passed and then COVID hit and COVID kind of threw everything off. So
Sure.
the bylaw does say, and right now we believe, unless something happens, that the next annual town meeting will be the last Saturday in March.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess my question is, if we're going to be establishing a regular fall town meeting, whether or not we want to consider having also on a Saturday for the same reasons that we
No.
did it for.
No, because October is crazy with kids' sports on Saturdays. And we probably need to have it in October. So you're not gonna, so if that was the rationale for moving it to Saturday, we might as well go back to what we did before.
And she would know. and Mr.
Also, I think I thought that the fall town meeting in November of 2021 had a high turnout, was about a dozen articles and was well run. That would be an example of it running just as you would like it. I think that demonstrated how on a weeknight, as long as it's focused, people come. I mean, definitely people, once the buzz gets around, there's going to be a full-time meeting, a lot of people are not frequent. How long is this going to take? As long as if it's a weeknight and you're going to be out of there by 9:30 or 10 o'clock, I think a lot of people are willing to go. It's just the annual town meeting is brutal. And
I think you run into weather issues with a Saturday in the, potentially, you never know, I guess, in October, November, you never know either. And hopefully the intent of this is to kind of streamline annual a little bit and allow some of the non-budgetary items to take place in the fall.
And another, idea that we've kicked around before is that establishing almost like a practice of that, the fall town meeting can be, there's usually a land use zoning related article, which is going around. And this is the fall town meeting is one where if there's be focused on this, again, this is another one where there's the focus of the fall town meeting. It's going to be a planning board article. I think that would be same thing. The fall town meeting 2021 was a zoning article.
Yep.
I think that's good.
And one thing I'll add for this fall as well is I've had quite a few people that haven't been to town meetings before, and they're completely a little freaked out about going to town meeting.
Okay.
They read things, and there's actually going to be, I know some new people that haven't had the opportunity. It's a lot less intimidating with what we have on the warrant for this town meeting as well. So hopefully we're going to see some new people. It's going to give them an opportunity as well to not have to be there for 2 nights and kind of less intrusive things and hopefully some great dialogue and give them a better understanding of how town meeting actually works.
Yeah, I definitely, as I said, I wholeheartedly support having the second meeting. I guess just whatever you think will result in the highest turnout. Obviously, low turnout at town meeting has been a problem for years. So if you think that a weeknight would be the best way to get as many people there, then I guess that's what you should go with.
I think at least there's a balance issue. I don't know about you, I got a lot of negative feedback for both Saturdays and evenings. One on Saturday, one on evening seems to be a good opportunity.
That's a good point.
Give people a chance
Yeah.
to- Half the world goes in one, half the world goes the other.
But if Saturday goes more than one day, it's going over to Monday.
Yeah.
So people want to take that too. But anyway, it's hard to
Yeah.
truly try to find
It is.
the sweet spot that you get the most people.
Sure.
I think if you had November, then you maybe would want to do it on a Saturday, but if you have any financial articles, then if you did it in November, you'd have to wait till July 1st to use the money because you'd already have set the tax rate for the year. So it's just more complicated, I think.
Great question,
to deal
Noah.
with.
Good question.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to hold 7. Can you make one comment? Of course.
Oh,
Come on up.
Since we're talking about needs, I'll throw in my pitch. I just want to advocate for an earlier start time.
And you know, it's hard when people,
So everybody has to eat
that's right.
and every
When
family
they
has
gotta
to.
commute home, you know, if they're in
Yep.
Boston,
I know.
takes photos home, they gotta get to bed, get the kids, you know, all situated, so it's hard to start for.
Yeah, I would say most people that go to town meeting don't come with their kids, so they've got to figure out what to do with their kids. But we also have to think about older people that are eating earlier. And families have to eat for sure. They have to figure it out. It's only one night. They really have to figure it out. Like you guys, I'm up at 5:30. I'm on Zoom calls 7-8 hours a day. And when I see start times at like 7:30, I'm thinking, oh God, I'm not gonna get out of here till 11. And that, you know, if I had an option not to go to meetings, that would be, you know, a reason I might not show up. So I would just ask if we can try it. I don't know that the town's ever tried like a 6:30 town meeting.
We did
We
this
did.
past year.
Most recent one.
Yeah.
It started at 6:30.
It was?
I think it's always gonna go to 11, basically. regardless of when it starts, so, yeah.
Well, that's why we did it, so that
Okay.
hopefully,
Yeah.
you know, we get done.
Okay, so I'm good, okay.
So we hear you.
It went to 11
Again,
anyway,
that
but
one's
6:30 was
hard
better.
too. You're gonna have arguments on both sides of that too.
Yeah. Thanks.
And we did used to have a lot of kids because we had, you know, babysitters daycare that took care, so we used to have quite a few kids. Okay, number 8, to see if the town will vote to adopt the bylaws that will basically set the time frame for citizen petitions. Right now, there's, you know, we discovered recently that citizen petitions can come in to the very last minute until we actually sign warrant. Well, the problem with that is they don't have time to vet them and talk about them and do what we're supposed to do to make sure we understand them, talk to the sponsor. So reason for this one, right?
Well, the
And
big
you did
issue
this
for
one
me,
once.
the big issue for me is public input.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have a circumstance where somebody comes in at the last minute with an important citizen petition, and the public generally is not aware of it because people publicize. So,
Yeah.
I've talked with town council and Mr. Hegarty about this, and so this is, I think now, both believe is supportable, so.
Okay, so 30 days.
This deals with, that's tight, but that does give a reasonable time. If warrant has to be posted 14 days in advance.
Yeah.
So that gives a couple of weeks inside. Publicize.
Is everybody okay with this one? We're ready to vote on this one? We're going to talk about it.
I'd like to see the language.
That's it. This is
It's
it,
here.
right here.
Also, brief,
So what is it establishing?
30 days.
30 days before
Okay,
town.
so in
meeting.
the packet, it's not that.
You get the draft, September 6th, 2022? Because this made it, this is in the language is in the draft that Mark
Okay.
circulated.
Got it.
I didn't have a chance to read.
I-
Yeah, so
All right, so we'll.
Yeah.
I can just
Yeah.
show you a copy of.
Mr. Bennington,
If it's-
Vanessa, are you able, if I send this to you, can you put this up?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's just adding the word 30 days.
I think the concern is some people haven't seen it
It's one sentence.
and just, we could just put it up. So.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, what I got in my packet is the draft from 9/2/22.
So Sam, this was yours or this was Andrew and
This
Lisa?
is mine. I started it a year ago, so yeah, a lot of questions about it. So.
Page 16. Perfect.
I'm fine with that.
So are we calling the fall town meeting a fall town meeting or a special town meeting?
Special town meeting.
Nope, you're calling it
Fall,
fall meeting.
we
So I
are.
think we need to add annual, fall,
And
or special.
Yeah, I agree.
Or just say a town meeting warrant and apply to every town meeting warrant.
We do that too.
So in any town
Any town
meeting
meeting
warrant, how about that?
Okay.
Is that okay with that?
And it's going to the select board office, not the clerk?
Yes,
Okay.
it comes to, the way
First.
that happens,
Okay.
is petitions come to select board,
Have
goes to the clerk's office to have signature certified, then comes back to us once it's been taken. once it's
Okay.
been approved.
Everybody seems to be okay with
Yep.
the modification?
Yep.
Okay, so Andrew,
I move that the select board support at town meeting Article 8 shown in the draft printed warrant
As amended.
as amended.
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor? At 5-0 on Article 8. All right,
Can we say Article 8 of the September 6th draft?
yes.
Like, I just want to make, because
No, I
what I
get
have is 9 in the packet, so for the public, I just want to make sure everybody knows. So it's Article 9 in the September 2nd version from the packet,
Okay, so this is the September,
right?
yeah, this is draft 2200906. Yep, this is September.
Okay,
6th
I know,
draft.
06,
So
that's
you're
right.
right.
I got the
Okay,
wrong
September
draft.
6th draft.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Okay, number 9, to see if the town will vote to amend chapter 41, telecom means by adding clickers as a possibility to paraphrase
Is
this.
this full?
No.
This one?
Yes.
That was full.
That was full.
All right. so
The one before.
Okay, sorry.
All right, so this is basically to allow the ability for the moderator to use the clickers to vote if he deems appropriate.
Yep.
Okay, this was pretty clear. Anybody have a question on this one? Okay, Andrew? Okay, so make the motion.
I move that the select board support at town meeting Article 9 as shown in the draft of the warrant dated September 6, 2022.
Perfect. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? So 5-0 on number 9. Okay, 10. I don't want to do 10 tonight again for what we said before. We'll figure this out the 20s as far as whether we want this to go through the special or we want to use ARPA funds, for example. So this is just, again, I think that we probably approve both. Right, as far as the 2 items are, that's not the question. The question is how to pay for them. Yep.
And also, I think that when this came up at a last meeting, I raised a question about whether a community compact grant might be an available source for that.
Yes,
And I
we
think there's a possibility that it might be. Was that the takeaway from?
I think there's a possibility, Ms. Hale's been
Okay.
having those conversations. There is something, I don't believe it was within the last 3-4 years that something like that was approved. How quickly that can happen is another thing. So the bids have been received and the RFPs are being reviewed, and recommendation will be coming forth. So we're going to be ready before any community compact.
How many bids did we get?
We got 5. 5, all from Massachusetts companies. We did have a broader brush of people who took the packages, but only 5 from Massachusetts.
So since we know the grant has funded another town's purchase, Vanessa, can you just close the loop though? Let's figure out what the timing is, just in case, we got some luck, and we really can still do it. Okay. All right, so this one we're not voting on yet, okay, but again, I think that we probably support both things, but we voted on, since we got number 10, which relates to number 9, right? Okay, 11, create the fund to replace trees are removed. I thought we were taking this one. out.
Planning board is taking this up,
Okay, taking it up or out?
taking it up to take it out.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this is, we're not gonna vote, this is probably gonna go, right? All right, next one is, or it is being taken out, which is the flow of funds from CPC to the AHTFC, which we talked about briefly last time. Okay, Mr. Zinsky is still here. She has confirmed this is not something that they want to put through the special town meeting. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so this one's coming off, okay, so it's 2 down. Okay, 13, 14 related, so let's talk about it at the same time. So this is 2 items that Mr. Sabelli wants to purchase. One is to upgrade his software, which he has to because the version he's got is not going to support it anymore. And then he wants money to finish the assessment that they are required to do over 9 years of all property in Southborough as far as appraisal goes. He wants to fund this by releasing additional money from the overlay reserve. So given he wants to release exactly the same amount, I called him today and said, well, does that mean you've got more money you can release if you wanted to? You know, the fact that you're releasing exactly what you need here means to me that they probably use more. And he said, so I said, we'll get back to you. So anyway, he apparently, you know, they close, you know, the way the overlay reserve works is your statute of limitations to appeal an assessment is 3 years. So once that statute has passed, he releases whatever overlay was collected for that year. So every year, and he's very conservative, you know, about $400,000 typically has gone into overlay reserve. And I'd say, you know, 2/3 of it comes back on the average. So he's very conservative. He's never had to go to town and ask for more money because an appeal was worse than we thought. So he's very conservative. So we've got confidence in that. But we may, when we finally get the evaluations for 1/1/22, which are almost done, want him to pull some more money out of that if he thinks he's got it, just again to try to keep the increase for fiscal 23 to something very close to what we said at town meeting, right? Okay. So you guys want to vote on these two tonight as far as at least the substance of them, as far as what he's asking for? Okay. All right. So Andrew,
Do you want a motion?
might as well
Both
do
at the same
one.
time?
They're related, doing both at one.
I move to the select board support a town meeting articles 13 and 14 in the draft warrant dated September 6, 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So those numbers will probably change on the article numbers, just want to make sure, okay.
Yes. the article
Right.
numbers will
Okay.
change. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, so we knocked out those two too. Okay, so we've knocked out about half of them. We took off 2, so we're down to 12, if I'm counting right. And we voted on. Well, we're taking, well, one I've got's got 14 in it, right? And so we took out 11 and 12 on this version. I think we got 12. Okay, agree?
I'm not sure.
Right.
Go back and
Well,
match it up.
yeah, so we read the text, so I think we're down to 12, close to 12, approximately 12, and I think we voted on 5. So we've got 5 or 6 more to vote on the 20th. Okay, unless we decide to meet in between to not vote so close. Okay, everybody okay with that one? Yeah. All right, next, consideration of the right of refusal for 40 and 42 Central Street. Looks like we, there's some people here tonight that are very interested in this one. Okay, bear with me, I'm gonna be a little long-winded here, I just want to make sure everybody knows where we left off when we met on the 26th and then what. I'll try to do tonight. Okay, so I'm gonna be a little repetitive, but there's probably people listening that didn't hear us on the 26th, so I think it's probably worthwhile to do. Okay, so an article was included on the 2017 annual town meeting warrant to consider selling Fayetteville Hall. It was the second time that the sale had been brought forth. It was also brought forth in 16 and failed to pass. The article did pass in 17 by the requisite 2/3 vote. A proposed amendment to require that a preservation restriction be put on the building as the condition of sale did not pass. The board of selectmen at that time asked town meeting not to tie their hands because we all knew selling the building was going to be difficult. It was in poor condition at the time of the vote and the town had no use for it, nor did it want to spend the significant sum of money it would take to properly rehab the building. But it was also clear that town meeting did not want the building to be demolished. The town initially only received one bid for Fayetteville Hall during the initial process. The purchase price was $5,000. The board at that time rejected that bid and put the property back out to bid. A company owned by John Deli Bruscoli bid on the property and was able to negotiate a P&S with the board site at the time. The P&S was signed on 2/13/19 for a purchase price of $21,000. The sale closed on 10/22/19. The P&S included a rider that gave Southborough a right of first refusal The buyer also granted Southborough a permanent easement for 12 parking places in the adjacent parking lot to be used for Fable Park parking, and that easement has been properly recorded. Okay, all right, and that's important because some of the people who commented on this wanted to make sure that parking was going to still be in place. All right, the select board recently received a letter from Mr. Pascoli requesting that the select board waive its right of first refusal to allow Mr. Pascoli to execute a bargain purchase sale with the Southborough Historical Society for $100. In essence, Mr. Pascoli is donating the property. The Southborough Historical Society has announced plans to rehab Fable Hall to its original state and put a preservation restriction on it. You can read about that on their website. The agreement between the Southborough Historical Society and Mr. Pascoli states that if the select board does not agree to waive its right of first refusal, then the deal between the two will be null and void. So that's kind of where we left off on the 26th. You may recall that the concern at that meeting was that, number one, we needed to make sure others in town had a right to comment. So Mr. Purple immediately sent out an email to all the various boards, commissions, departments to ask them to comment on the decision we need to make, right? So gave them a week and we got 6 comments back, and I'm going to summarize those in a second as far as what came back. So we did have 5 individuals, and then the planning board were the respondents to that email, okay? Then Ms. Braccio also wanted to request that the Historical Society agree to put the preservation restriction on the facade of the building, and also wanted to request that the Southborough Historical Society, once they closed on the property, execute a new right of first refusal with the town for a subsequent sale. So that's where we left off on the 26th. After we left, I went back to my office. I called Mr. Whiteshank, who's here tonight, who is the current president of the Southborough Historical Society, and made the 2 requests: preservation restriction and new roofer. He then talked to his board, called me back later in the day and said that they would not agree to do a new roofer, and that they still fully intended to put the preservation restriction on, but you couldn't put one on until you actually did the work that you wanted to preserve. And they intended to do a lot of work to basically restore the building to its former beautiful self. Mr. Whiteshank then signed a letter from the Historical Society, which you have in your packet, that basically just reiterated what I said as far as their intentions. Okay, so far so good. All right, now let me summarize quickly what came back to us from the various boards, etc. Okay, so we got 6 responses. None of the 6 asked us to exercise the right of first refusal. In other words, no one came back and said, please buy the building. Okay, so that's a fact, all right? One response was concerned with the retention of the 12 parking spaces promised in the original deal. So we said, we've got an easement, that is not an issue, that's reported, so that will carry over. Southborough Historical Society knows about that, so they have acknowledged that the easement is in place and will respect that. One response was from a former select board member, Bonnie Fana, who I think probably was on the board when this was the current town meeting. She signed the PNS. So, you know, there's a time when she went on and came back. So maybe she wasn't there at the town meeting vote as far as select board, but she did sign the PNS. She was on board second. Anyway, she was pretty emphatic with her response. She said, don't do it. She gave some other reasons not to do it, but she said, don't do it. You know, we don't have the money to do it. We didn't know what to do before, just don't do it. One response was merely a question asked Mr. Purple, which she responded to. One response was from someone who had understandably conflated the Southborough Historical Commission with the Southborough Historical Society, Inc., right? And of course, they sound alike, but they're 2 entirely different things. The Historical Commission is part of Southborough. The Southborough Historical Society, Inc. has nothing with Southborough. It's got its own officers, its own board. It is a Massachusetts not-for-profit corporation and has been granted charity status by the IRS. So we have no control over the Southborough Historical Society, Inc., which is the party to this agreement with Mr. Pascoli. Okay, so that one was kind of NA because the 2 were being improperly controlled. Tim Martell on advisory asked a lot of questions, but the one that was probably the most important was does the select board have an alternative use in mind for this property? And my answer is, we don't at this point, right? Does anybody disagree with that answer? Okay. All right, and then the planning board said, they met last week and they put together their response. So this was from the planning board as a whole. And they basically just reiterated the concerns that Ms. Braccio raised on the 26th, which is, we really want to see this building protected. And like the idea of a new roofer, encouraged us to do what we could to do both. So they basically did what Lisa said on the 26th as far as what they'd like to see. They also wanted to make sure the parking places were in place, which we said they are. So the parking is not an issue. Okay. Now, the planning board did say this letter, I'm quoting directly from them. So quote, that we applaud Southborough Historical Society's intention to bring this beautiful building back to life and create what could be an incredible asset for the town, unquote. So that was part of the letter too. Okay, so that's the responses we got from the email that Mr. Purple sent out. Okay. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so here we are tonight. The Southborough Historical Society would like to move forward with this transaction. There is, they would like to get going while the weather is still going to allow them to do it. So I put together a motion that I'm going to read and then ask for a second, and then we'll discuss this further. Okay. All right. So good. Okay. So the motion is to, I move to not exercise the right of first refusal granted the town by the purchase and sale agreement between First Colony Development Company, Inc. and the town of Southborough dated 2/13/19, and request that the Southborough Historical Society immediately install appropriate signs at their expense in the parking lot at 40 Central Street, designating the 12 spaces set aside for Southborough residents' use upon completion of the parking lot construction and improvements. So that's the motion. So I'm going to ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, and now discuss. So anybody want to start? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so first I want to say, certainly I'm not looking for the town to take this back. I have no issue with waiving the right of first refusal, as I said at our last meeting, but I think, again, I still feel very strongly about the conditions. And, when this property was sold, granted, as you said, through the history, for the first time it came back for 5,000. Through the RFP process, one of the things we gave preference to obviously was preservation. Town meeting was very clear. That's what they wanted to see done in this building. I wasn't on the board then, but I certainly supported that. So that was one of the reasons why I was supportive of selling the building for $21,000. There is value in preserving this building. There's a variety of things. There is the parking spots and protection of the parking spots. That was, one of the things that was very important. We never know down the road what could or couldn't happen. I'm supportive of the society taking over this building. Absolutely. I think what they're looking to do is great, and I commend them for that. But I think there's a value in looking out for the taxpayer as well. The intent of what we wanted to do was a preservation restriction. The easements for the parking are done, that's fine. But I think the right of first refusal across from where this park is, and I think for me, this is one of the sticking points. There's tremendous value to the parking and being across from a park. I think for the taxpayers, we're looking at the tax bill last year was roughly $3,000. I think I, as a taxpayer, am happy to make the investment for the society to take this building over. But I think someday, which we all never know, whatever it could be, I think it's in the town's best interest, based on the park and based on the sale price of the $21,000, to retain the right of first refusal on this building. I feel pretty strongly about that. And again, I think the value is not just in the building, but it's in the parking. And if something happens at some point down the road, there's tremendous value. Vega Park is going to be there for a long time. And I just think that, just look over my notes here. I think it's important, and I respect what the society the position that they've taken, but I think in order to give up the right of first refusal, our discussion is really with Mr. Della Pascoli and not necessarily the society. In order for us, he's asking us to give up our right. And I think it's certainly in order for me to do that, and I'm, again, supportive of doing that. I would just like to make sure that the preservation restriction is put on, which as a historian, I'm sure you can appreciate that. And the preservation restriction can be put on before the work is done. It was done on 84 Main Street. The town negotiated a preservation restriction. So I don't think it's necessarily out of line for that to happen. And again, I think at the end of the day, the right of first refusal and the preservation restriction will benefit us all and will continue to help preserve the building going into the future. So that's my 2 cents.
Make a couple of comments.
Absolutely.
I think I start with the same thing. I think that my view is, I think it's important to get this deal done.
Agreed.
I think that everybody is on board in terms of preservation.
Yep.
I think the continued right of first refusal is a bit of a red herring, in that if we do have a preservation restriction, then that limits what somebody can do with it down the road. So nobody's going to turn it into an apartment complex, for example, down the road. So I think that's a moot point with the preservation restriction. I think that the parking, again, is in the deed recorded now. So whoever buys that property down the road, I think is committed to that. I think that's correct. Is it not?
So you're talking about
The parking easement, yeah.
Yep.
That runs with the property.
Yep.
So that's basically set forever here. And I think the other issue in my mind is that, you know, I will take Mr. Della Pascoli at his word in the letter that he sent. If we do exercise this, vote to exercise it, then the deal is off, which to me is a great loss to the town in terms of preserving an asset that I think a lot of people care about, and now has funding to do some important, useful things for the town. So that, in my view, is basically a chance we take by voting to waive the right of first refusal and counting on the word and the good graces of the Historical Society to follow through as they've indicated that they intend to do with that preservation restriction, whether it comes immediately or at some point after they've done work on the property. Because I'm personally willing to rely on Mr. Weissman's and his board's word that that's going to happen. That allows things to move forward here in a way that I think is a great outcome for the town. And I agree with 100%. So I don't think anybody wants to take the building back.
Nope.
And if we did exercise the right of first refusal and went through the dance of getting assessments and appraisals and so forth there, I think we wind up with a bigger mess in a lot of ways down the road. I try to think about consequences, step by step, doing that kind of stuff. So again, I think that at least for me, the right path is to waive the right of first refusal, count on the good graces of the Historical Society and the right thing, and take advantage of the opportunity to create a real asset or something that historically the town has been a liability. And that we've done a lot of diligence to say if there's no use that we can make for it, which I've not seen anybody come up with a even far out perspective. So we can do something that's better than those being proposed here. So I'm ready to support this. I understand the concerns there. Life is not perfect in many ways. It's just another example.
No, and Sam,
It's pretty good.
I'm not advocating for not exercising the right of first refusal. I just think if we can add some protections for everyone involved, then.
And I would like to do that. And if I didn't think that jeopardized the deal, I would certainly support that. But I'm going to.
Fair enough.
It sounds like what's required to do.
So I'm going to leave Andrew to last because he's the attorney of the board. And Jay Telemann is also in our audits town council if they need to bring him in. So Chelsea will go to you.
Okay. So I look at my role in this as being responsible for protecting the town's interests. And I'm not overly concerned about the folks that are sitting in the room today and, you know, taking their word for it, Sam, and making sure that the signage gets up for the playground, because I know you see the kids playing and you want to be a good community member. I think you have great ideas for what you want to do with the building. and, you know, executing on a preservation restriction. It's just, I don't want to tie the hands of a board in 100 years when the society says, we're all set with this location, and the town has a need for that location. I think that's where I'm coming from. It's not necessarily what they're going to be doing with it, or that I don't want it to go to the society. I think it's a great opportunity for the society, and for the town and for the community members. I just think that I don't want to tie the hands of a board later down the road, and when we don't know what the town's landscape is going to look like, and if, you know, we need that space for something that nobody's come up with yet because it's in the future.
How do we do that, though? I guess that's my
Right,
question. I
okay,
can't
so
figure out how.
ladies, you
Yeah,
gotta explain to us how you propose to do this. Legally, I don't see a way to do this. The right of first refusal is between Mr. Piscoli, and the town. Does not involve the Southborough Historical Society. We asked and they said no, as far as a new right of first refusal. So this idea that it doesn't carry over to a sale or a transfer, it's gone. We've got one right. So either we do this or we don't. And as Sam said a minute ago, Mr. Scully in his agreement has said to the Southborough Historical Society, if the town refuses to waive their right of first refusal, this deal is off. It's null and void. So we haven't really accomplished very much if we don't do this. I am in agreement with Mr. Stivers in that I believe the Southwest Strike, I mean, that's what they're here for. I mean, this is what they want is to do this kind of thing. So I have full faith that once they're ready to put the pier on, they will do that. And then once that's on, I'm not worried about another broker because you've got the building protected. So even if they were to sell it, it's going to be sold as a protected building, which is what I think that will accomplish. Now, I hadn't really thought about what Chelsea just said, which is, well, what if we do want it back someday and there is another sale, we want to, you know, be able to raise our hand and say, well, we'll buy it, right? So I agree that we're giving that up without another broker, but I don't see legally where you guys are going with this. So you're going to have to explain what you want us to do to get to where you want us to get legally. Jay's here. Bring him over. That's why I brought, you know, save Andrew for last. I just don't see how legally you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. So,
can we bring Jay over?
Yeah.
Let's hear from our in-house counsel.
Yeah, so I agree. I want to hear from, let's hear from Andrew first and then we'll go to Jay.
Sure. I mean, Kathy, I mean, this is up to you to share, but you know, Mr. Weishand's here and Mr. Scully's here, and I think there's an opportunity if they want to just speak to us directly about what they're.
And I was going to ask them to, once
Okay.
45 have had our initial comment.
Sure. So, you know, one of the things we talked about is a preservation restriction, right? So, you know, the Historical Society said on the website, they're going to do that. And you know, in the correspondence we got from Mr. Delicatoli prompted the first meeting. You know, there's a description of what the time frame is of, you know, looking to going quickly. I'd just be interested in hearing, just kind of open-ended, you know, what are the plans to do this? Get it accomplished, be helpful. This is something that's in the best interest of the town to see. I'm excited about the work that the society could be doing and taking over this building, and just would give them an opportunity to, you know, just speak to us directly about what do you think that we should do. And, you know, you're hearing the concerns about the preservation restriction. It's really just a matter of timing, and just if they're both here, if they want to comment on that.
I would just ask, before you do that, based on the comment that you made, I would like to hear from council. If council says that what Chelsea and I are even bringing up for consideration is a non-issue, Kathy, then the discussion's over.
Okay, all right.
You know, I think.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So, absolutely, Lisa. Okay, so is he over?
Yes.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, can folks hear me?
We can. So have you heard the whole discussion?
So I've been listening. I couldn't hear every part of it. Like I couldn't hear every part of what Sam was saying, but I got the gist of most of it. It strikes me there's a question as to whether or not we could impose prior to this sale a future right of first refusal that we could execute later upon a subsequent sale. Was that a question that folks were looking to get answered?
That's the first one. The second one is also can we require, as a condition of transfer, that the Southborough Historical Society put a PR on Babel Hall? So there's two questions.
So you can't unilaterally require that and waive at the same time. You could exercise, I mean, everything's negotiable. So to the extent that that was important enough and folks wanted it, then the tools at your disposal are to note your intention to exercise and then go forward. And then hopefully people have a discussion as to the terms under which you would perhaps waive that right. So everyone wants something here. And the way to do that is to enter into a negotiation. Legally, this is all possible. It's a question of how motivated are people to get what they want. As to future promises to get things done without a binding agreement, you know, I'm a lawyer, so that never sounds particularly attractive to me because it's not binding. But, you know, relationships are relationships. And if folks are satisfied with unenforceable promises, then, you know, far be it from me to tell them no. But if someone asks me as a lawyer, is that reliable or advisable? I'm almost always going to say it's not what a lawyer would want to see to secure my client's rights, but I'm also not going to counsel a client on their gut instincts either.
So then I think that gets to my point. I'd just be interested in hearing information about the timeline of the proposed project.
So are you Mr. Piscopo?
I am.
I'm sorry, I've never seen you in person. You're very famous in this town, but I've never seen you. So would you, you know, we didn't ask you to do this. We didn't know what it is, but we would love to talk to you.
How's everybody tonight?
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you
Sure.
for coming.
Well, I'm enjoying the doing the Burnett House, as you know. I tried to go above and beyond what I had promised there. I think everybody would agree I did. And I think that's what the society is going to do here. I personally am very fond of the society. I didn't know anything about the society when I first got involved. But they've done a lot of curation of the Burnett history of the town, and plus many other properties. And I think there would be a great, that's why I'm donating the building. I think it's the right thing to do. I'm a community-minded person, and I love history. My wife and I, our complete passion is antiques and the arts and all that, and that's what we do. That's how we spend. Some people play golf. We go to auctions and do those type of things. And I also, and we're a team that we do the work on the house. And I mean, I'm very fussy on how I do it and to what level. And I've instilled that the society already had that passion. I'm going to help them, guide them with the restoration, and I'm providing them with a subcontract, you know, to help them with not just, you know, saying, here it is, good luck to you. I mean, I'm staying involved as best I can as a community-based, you know, I want to make sure the right thing happens. That's why I took on Fable Hall. I didn't want to see it turned into affordable housing, which is what was proposed, I think, prior. And I that's the only reason I heard about it. I said, are you kidding me? I mean, what? I mean, I'm all for affordable housing. I just don't think that's the appropriate spot. And it doesn't make any dent in that particular proposal. Made no dent in your numbers anyway. There's only a couple of units. So I've always been, but I love history, and I love to see buildings preserved. You lose your old buildings, you lose the character. I mean, you drive into a lot of towns, you see the the people always admire the history of the buildings and how they've been restored and how they're repurposed. It's a big thing today. I drive through, big example is what happened to Government Center. I mean, you look at what happened in Boston there, you look at the old Scully Square pictures and I just cringe, what could have been and what is today. Probably end up leveling the whole thing. This is an example of once you lose these buildings. So not to get off track, I've tried to do the right thing with everything I've done and I'm trying to do the right thing here. That's why I'm donating the building. I mean, I'm not, it's not about money here. It's about doing the right thing for the town. And when they expressed an interest in the building, so I'd love to help you out. So I don't think there's no other agenda. It's just I'd like to help out and I'm trying to do that. And I think no deal is perfect, I guess, but I think looking for future rights or refusal and all that is really unnecessary because as Mr. Stivers pointed out very eloquently, the building is going to be restored. It's going to be preserved. It's going to be finished. You have your 9 spaces or whatever it is in there forever. And they're going to be a great custodian of that space. And if for some reason they dissolved down the road and the building was sold, then nobody can do any substantive changes to that building. I mean, that's really the goal. Whether the town would want the building or not, well, I think that ended when you basically decided not to restore it to begin with. And typically, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but towns are very bad landlords. Just in general, it's not just the town of Southborough, it's just every town. And then you're subject to prevailing wage and all kinds of other things that make the cost. I mean, I've served on several committees. I served on a fire station committee, I served on a police committee, and I did a grammar school, all in the town of Carver. And I can tell you, and as I'm sure you all know sitting here, what it costs to do public work. It's Mr. Purple is an expert in the procurement aspect of that. That's the system we have to live with when the public owns something. This is a nice, so really it becomes, and I just think this is a great solution for the building. I mean, I had every intention of putting an auction gallery in there. I have young children and I'm busy with a whole host of things. And so I really think this is a great solution. And when they approach it, I think this is a better solution than what I had. And I want to do what's right for the town. What I think is right, at least. And I hope everybody agrees. It seems everybody agrees with that.
I don't think anybody disputes that at all.
I mean, how could you?
Absolutely.
Honestly.
That's not the question.
And I understand that, but I think, you're splitting the baby in this a little bit, so to speak. That's a lawyer term that Mr. Talon is very familiar with the judges and everything. Basically you have a situation where, yes, they've agreed to do the preservation restriction at some point once the building is, properly preserved, but on the other hand, they're not willing, I mean, the right of first refusal is, so it's a half of an apple. And what I consider you get in a whole orchard if they do the project. So I think it's the right move to just move forward with it. That's up to you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any
So,
questions?
do you have any, what are you contemplating about when the project's gonna begin?
Well, I've already got
Any
all,
plans?
I had already started the project. The building is, okay, that's a good point, Andrew.
So you're gonna
building
need
will do-
permits and things like
Well, no, I
that?
already have all, the full architectural plans are done, and they've been modified slightly for their purposes. The building's fully gutted. I've already had a full structural engineer analysis done to the building. I know just what has to be done. I've got a site contractor already teed up as I was going to move forward. And so, the building is ready to go. And I have site plan approval. And, myself, which, so it's we put a lot of effort into a septic system design and approve the conservation permits because it is abutting the wetland down by the railroad there. And so it's ready to go. This is like instant, start on this. And I think the town would be excited to see some progress. And I think getting the parking lot fixed, really, you say you want parking spaces, but the way the parking lot is like a minefield right now, so it really needs.
We still use it though.
They do.
Yeah.
Although there is a pretty wide berth on the street there, the street parking.
Yeah,
on
but
one
not during
side.
a basement.
Yeah, but with small children parking in the street, I mean, I have a 4-year-old. I know
Yeah.
it seems hard to believe. But, I understand. But To answer your question, does that help? And as far as.
Yeah, but just one, point you made, just in, I don't know if you had a chance to look on the big packet, but included are some emails from the town planner. I think she had a concern that the prior site plan approval had lapsed.
It hasn't because of COVID. There's a grace period and we're within it.
Okay.
I'm just telling you, I've already checked on that.
Okay, so you did see that, but.
I didn't really.
I got the email too, so that we've done our job as far as.
There's a period of time you get it, then you get it, that's a period of time that the governor gave a certain window of time, because everything was. They told it or whatever you call it. And that was more than that, more than a lot more than that. Because people work hard to get these permits and then they just evaporate because you can't do anything and you could, so. It was a smart move that they did that, to preserve, because this is very expensive. I mean, there's over, for what just so you folks know, I have just in the engineering alone over 50,000.
At least, I'm sure.
So this isn't just, and then we completely gutted the building, everything's been managed, everything's been disposed of. It's actually going to do, right now it's got a brand new gas service already in it. It's going to have a new water service put in it. It's going to have the proper drainage around it. It's always had a water hydraulic problem there. But that's because there's no proper drain tile around the building, which is part of this engineering plan. It's got a brand new septic. I don't know what the septic is today. I'm sure it's failed. It's horrible. They've a brand new Title V system, beautiful landscaping. The planning board is getting, got a lot of things. A lot of plants that are going in there. It doesn't mean you can't revisit, modify it, work with them on it, but it's a nice plan. It's a nice plan. It's a beautiful plan. The building would be nice for the town, and to have these cultural things. I think introducing people into unfortunately, when you go to antique shows and things, it's all older people now. There's very few younger people that are interested in it, which is a shame, that people don't, I think this could foster and conjure some of that, hopefully, interest in cultural things. And they have I don't know if you have seen their collection, but I'm really impressed with, especially the Burnett related items, which I own. I don't. But that's, so I think a place to enjoy that and have people, have some type of teach people how to curate documents or whatever, or all kinds of what's important and things of that nature. I think it's a great asset for the town. Anything you can do for community involvement and encouraging cultural base, I think is a very good thing. Personally, I think it's a big lack in society. It's called, I see culture kind of like, especially, antiquities. I think this is a great start. I think this is a great group of people that I've been to really like them. And they've been supportive of my project. And I've tried, a lot of people stuck their neck out, on that whole thing with the Burnett House. I know that, because they believed in me. And somebody mentioned about promises. The people in the historical end of things, the people who restore things, they follow through. They're passionate about it. It's not a finance, it's a passion project. That's what these things are. If Burnett would never look like that if there was not passion involved.
Agreed. And it's not about people, and it's not about, any level of trust. It's about making sure, especially on the preservation restriction, it's, again, you don't know today what you don't know tomorrow. And, it's fine to say that the society will do it. And again, they probably will. I have the minuscule of doubt, which again, you don't know what you don't know. And when the building was sold, to you, and again, the town was thankful. And we, I sat on the board, when all of that went through and the first bid came in and, it's just the certainty of knowing that a restriction is going to be placed on that building. There was a value. There was a value in selling it to you and knowing the good things that were going to happen. Not that they're not going to happen now, they are.
Well, they will.
I just think it's a level for me of, I don't think it should be a big commitment. I would hope the society would feel different and say, fine, we've set it on our website, that's great. but, you know, make it a condition that, yes, we are going to do this.
If
We're
it
gonna
gives,
do
if it
this.
gives you any comfort, I'm gonna be guiding them as much as I can and offering my help,
And I don't doubt you will,
you know, because I want to see it follow through. And that's, I'm involved in the Wayside Inn too, you know, I mean, I'm no longer serving trustee there. I mean, I'm there because I don't want to see anything happen to us. You know, and that's not a protected, to give you an example, that's not a protected property. The town does not have a right to first refusal there. And there's no CR on that property. It's all up to the trustees, you know.
But is there a preservation restriction?
No.
There's not. Interesting.
So, and that's, I mean, and we're gonna make sure it stays like that for another 300 years, you know, so it's already 300 years.
At least I'm not sure how that be structured though, in the sense that our deal is with the current owner.
Right.
And so, and he presumably could get some sort of a commitment from the society, maybe, but we don't have a legal relationship with the society at this point, so
Correct.
I'm not sure how you want to structure that technically.
Yeah, so, well, I think that, the takeaway from what Jay said is that in order to have all these things happen.
You gotta exercise.
Correct.
And I'm not interested in doing that either. I am not interested realistically in excising the right, you know, I would hope that we could have all come to an agreement and worked together and said this, instead of just, this is gonna happen, and left it at that, you know? I would have hoped for a little bit more commitment, and I would sign off tonight.
Isn't that what we have?
So
We're gonna vote tonight.
Yeah.
We owe them an answer one way or another, whether we're going to exercise or not. So we're going to vote. We've got a motion, we've got a second. So we're going to vote on either exercising this or not tonight. The effect, I believe, of exercising this is to kill the bill. That's what we're.
Well, that's, you're right, Mr. Chairman.
So I'm just being blank.
So that's what I'm saying, is
And
I-
one more thing. I do think this is a little hypocritical of us. When in 17, this was in front of the town, and Mr. Weishan asked for the PR to be put in, the town voted no, because the select board said, please don't tie our hands. We need some flexibility here. So we could have put a PR on this back in 17, but we chose not to. So here we are 5 years later, wanting to put the PR with the same person who wanted to put the PR on there to begin with. So there is a little irony here if it's not.
There is, but then it shouldn't be as big of a deal, Kathy, in putting the PR on as it is.
I don't think anybody-
But irregardless, I think,
where I was going with this is, the only way to do all these things is to exercise and then have a completely different deal, because right now we don't own the property. Right?
correct.
If the town exercises and the town own the property, then you could do all these different things. But I don't think we should do that. So,
And to exercise, Mr. Scully would have to agree not to withdraw his deal, that we are exercising against that deal. He said in his agreement that he's going to withdraw the deal. It's going to be null and void if we vote to exercise. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I still think this is a pure victory if we vote to exercise, because he says, okay, I'm going to go back to the drawing board and do something different. Because I said very clearly, I'm going to withdraw that offer if you guys vote to exercise your roper. I'm not, he doesn't want to, he wants this Southborough Historical Society can have this. So I just, I think we tried. I totally appreciate what you said, and I really hadn't thought about what you said as far as down the road. You know, maybe we would have a use for it and would want to buy that, it'd be fair market value. I don't know, it would be worth it, but you know, we are giving up that for sure. But this was a one-time roper. It wasn't a roper that was meant to last on multiple transactions, one transaction. So
I also had was a comment about the form of the motion that you proposed, because I would be prepared to vote for this. However, I think it should be very specific so that this is not a general waiver of the right of first refusal to any, to different deals that.
It's deal specific.
A deal specific waiver,
That's
so that it would be, with respect to the offer to purchase that was presented to us on X date, that we do not
I think
elect not to exercise our right of first refusal to repurchase the property. And, that Mr. Callan is still here, he could draft something, it's just like 1 or 2 sentences, that just, that's in a form that is satisfactory to Mr. Purple or someone, just so that there is a clear record, because I think like, looking back, we see with some of these documents where the language wasn't really all that clear and led to other things that went off in different directions, so.
Well, let me put your mind at ease that this transaction is for the Historical Society alone, and if they didn't follow through and give me the $100 for the building and it never closed, the deal would be null and void, it would be status quo. And you can put that right in your motion if you want.
No, that's not the part that
I
Well, it is, but you
He
said
wants
you
to
were
make
worried
sure-
about, you were worried about it going to, like, you waived it and then some other person
Yeah, yeah.
parachuted in. But that's, I'm just telling you right now, you could put that into your motion, so it's a limited waiver. And it's limited to the Historical Society and that's it, and I'm fine with that.
on the same terms,
I totally agree that we need to add which deal we're talking about as far as what we're waiving the right. Totally agree. And Jay is with us and I think can totally help us do that.
I agree that there should be some specificity as to the particular transaction. I think that should you choose to waive, I think you may also want to put in even non-binding, but perhaps a historical note to the notion that there's been a pledge that there will be an HPR put on. It's not binding, obviously, but I think it would be good to set the parties' expectations going forward for future boards, future members of the SHS, and other interested members of the public at least.
Objection to that?
No.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, so Jay, you have been put on the spot and asked by Mr. Dennington to help us put this motion together.
I think Chelsea had a
I
question.
just have one more
Sorry.
question. What's the downside from your perspective on giving the town the right of first refusal on a subsequent deal
Well,
or in this deal?
That's not his to give.
That's
Southborough Historical Society need to do that.
right. But
It-
the
it-
thing
we need
is,
to do that.
the thing is typically right of first refusal to survive one transaction. I mean, I've been doing real estate for 45 years. I've never seen it.
For good reason.
Yes. You gotta be careful with these long tentacles. It could affect the titles. But I think this is a great outcome for everybody in this room and everybody in this town.
And I don't disagree with that. I just am looking when we're all not here.
Right.
That's all.
And that's the beauty of it. That's why, the Southborough Historical is giving you that pledge. I'm giving you the pledge. And, they're gonna do it. They wanted to do it, before it was even sold to me, before I even knew about it. I think you should go along with that. I mean, that would be my advice, but I'm not the town council, but it's in everybody's interest to get them moving on this project, I think.
So,
I'll let Jay.
so Jay, are you in a place where you can help put this motion together so that we do it, include everything that you and Andrew both just requested should be included?
Austin came back, he's down muted.
His name's up there.
Muted.
Jay,
Jay, can you hear us?
I'm sorry, I lost the connection for a second. Is there a question for me?
yes. Yes.
Andrew?
Please guide us on this motion that includes what you just stated as far as basically, requesting the PR, and then what Andrew wants to put in there as far as making sure we're only waiving the right of first refusal on the deal that's on the table tonight.
I'm happy to put together a motion doing a motion while I'm, I want to do it justice, and I am in my car right now.
Okay.
So,
Can't you do this, Andrew?
I mean, I could paraphrase.
Andrew's going to do it, and then we'll read it to you. How about that?
Okay,
So
so
I'm
Yeah,
going to withdraw the motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
just to alleviate, I think, your concern, to make sure it's specific to the deal, if you make sure that the motion references Mr. Priscoli's August 19, 2022 letter, then I think that that ties it to the specific deal.
Yeah. On the spot here,
You
but-
got it, Andrew.
All right, well, and, all right. I move that the select board vote to not exercise its right of first refusal with respect to the offer to purchase Fayetteville Hall.
Try to put together, Sandra. 40
40 and 42
42
Central Street. Presented in the offer to purchase from Mr. Deli Pascoli dated August 19, 2022, contingent upon the approval by the Purple, someone of approval of a letter that's been reviewed by town council, confirming that the decision not to exercise is specific only to that particular deal. And, referencing in the letter, the Historical Society's commitment to, in the future, place a preservation restriction on Fayetteville Hall. I can't keep track of what I just said right there, but
It's recorded from last year.
okay.
100 years later, we'll be watching this.
So I don't know if Jay heard that. Is any comment on that?
I think Mr. Purple said that by reference to the letter you covered, right? Yeah.
So we got the letter,
that
and
wasn't
then we
that,
got the
right?
date of the letter, so we described the transaction, and we have reiterated our request that a preservation restriction be put on it.
Yes.
Because it's a request, it's not a.
And I'll second the motion.
Did you want to, I mean, on your parking?
I did that for you.
I know you did. So I think
Okay,
there's
let's
work
do two different
so
motions.
it's-
Let's do this one. Let's do that. This is two. Let's do the
Fine.
second. We're gonna do two motions. So the second one's easy.
Yeah.
Let's do this one first. Okay, Andrew's made the motion. Sam, did you second?
I did.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, so all in favor of the motion to relinquish our right of first refusal, not exercise it, raise your hand. So that's 5-0. Okay, now, this is also not mandatory, but I would also like to make a motion to request that the Southborough Historical Society immediately install appropriate signs at their expense in the parking lot at 40 Central Street, designating the 12 spaces set aside for Southborough residents' use upon completion of the parking lot construction. This has got the new septic in, it's all blacktop. We want those signs to go in so we know where we're supposed to park.
Second.
Okay, all right. All in favor? So Historical Society, did you hear that one?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Deli Pascoli.
Thank you.
It's nice to see everybody.
It was very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. We're on the fifth, but we're here. Thank you. That's right.
It's actually a very short. But sometimes.
Still need a tour from over there.
A tour? Oh, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
The garden club, I think,
Yes.
is coming as well.
Oh, are they?
Worked hard on the gardens. That's my passion. is flowers.
That's beautiful. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for all your work in town.
What's that?
Thank you for
Oh,
all your
sure.
work in town.
So Jay, thank you very much for,
Can Jay stick around?
for the Park Central.
I have a question for him on our side.
So-
Can we take a 5-minute recess?
Yes, we can.
You want me to try to get them back?
So, you know what my question is? All those, a ton of them, so. Way back.
So if you get all these photos, it's like, everybody's, you know, all of this. You're just gonna have fun. Just gonna do some other terms. Everybody here?
Yep.
Everybody ready? Vanessa, we're ready. Ready? We're back. Okay, so we're back in session. So, last item. This is certainly an important item. Okay, so we are now going to talk about the comment letter that we are going to be sending to Mass Housing no later than September 22nd. Everybody has seen the draft that Mark and Vanessa worked on very hard for us. So we're not going to finalize the letter tonight, right? We're just going to continue to flesh it out. We may have to have a special meeting to finish this because I don't really want to wait until the 20th.
Yeah.
Make sure we got time to do this right, right? This is really important to do it right. So we may just have to call a special meeting just this one item to make sure we're ready to truly finalize it on the 20th and not wait to have a lot done on the 20th. Anybody disagree with that sentiment?
No.
Nope.
All right. Okay, so Sam.
I'm sorry, so one point, so because of the holiday and everything else on that, we continued to work this and provided this to the board on Tuesday, so it was not in the packet. If you want to have it put up on the screen to look at some things or to do something like that, you can have Ms. Hale bring that up.
We may, but my plan was not to really go through it in detail. Everybody, we're going to make some broad comments
Sure.
first, because everybody
Sure,
says broadly,
sure.
right? And then if we need to put it up, we will, but your good
Okay.
point, I forgot it wasn't in the packet.
Yes.
Sorry, it wasn't.
Yeah. And just to speak to that, and again, I just want to acknowledge, Ms. Hale had gone back and taken a look at the previous letter from 2013. I think some of those same concerns, continue to exist with this application. And some of the board members have provided some comments and tried to incorporate those. The letter is by no means anywhere close to where I think you want it to be, but I think at least in some areas it tried to, explain some pieces, but left some items in there for you to consider as to whether that's something that you want in the final draft, or that's something that you feel is better said by others, or is not something the board wants to take up. So, so that's where it is as it was given to you.
But thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Mark, for doing, I know it took a while, I know it took a little research, so thank you for taking initial stab at it. Okay, so I thought I'd start with Sam tonight as far as thoughts on the proposed letter.
Okay, again, thanks, Mark and Vanessa. A lot of relevant points in here. And I think the issue for me is both content, which I think we've got a lot of good content here, and structure in terms of what point do we want to make. And as I've tried to step back from it and say, if I'm in Mass Housing shoes, what do I look at when I get this kind of letter? And my question is, what do you want? What are you trying to say here? And I think that there is value, if I were writing it, to start with, what do we want? What's the ask? And I think you sort of start with the thanks for the opportunity to comment, general comment. But then I was thinking along the lines of saying, the town requests that Mass Housing does not approve this application unless the following issues are addressed appropriately. And that issue list to me is fairly succinct, and the biggest one is the public health and safety risk relative to traffic, and therefore do not allow any of the development traffic to have access to Flag Road. And you got to say it a little more smoothly than that, but keep the traffic off of Flag Road. Second is ensuring that the existing abutting residential neighborhoods are protected from building massing near neighborhood property lines, and there's appropriate visual and sound screening along the property lines. And third, I think that it's appropriate to require the applicant provide at least concept plans for use of the remaining 83 acres of the site, so the town can conduct appropriate review and provide additional responses depending on what is likely to be developed on that site. Fourth, I think they should be required, the applicant should be required to provide for any necessary upgrades or modifications to public utility services, particularly relative to water supply and maybe one or two other areas that flesh out. And finally, any conservation commission concerns need to be addressed. And I think that's still sort of out there a little bit. I don't know exactly, there may not be much there. But, and there may be other modifications to that, but I'd start by saying, here's what we want you to do. Then here is a variety of other relevant context material that I think is in there. And I think there are some other points that are in some of the citizen letters that we received that might be worth including in this. And then I close it, sort of tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you just told them. At the end, come back and say, don't approve this without the points that we have requested support for additional paragraph. And we're happy to continue discussing this as we go along. So some structure like that, I think, for me at least, would have more impact as the recipient of it. Before I sort of dive into all of the contextual stuff, what do you want? And what is it going to take to get your support for it? And there may be some other language that says, if we could do this, then we're fine with it. So that's sort of my personal view of the requirements here, the right structure. Convince me what I need to focus on as a permitting authority.
Two questions.
Only two?
Only two. So I think that's a great starting point. My first question is, I don't know whether he has to provide us with this. Didn't this come up during the site visit meeting?
They're probably not going to do it. On the other hand, anything they can tell us, I think, would be helpful for us to.
Agree.
And I- I'm sure they actually don't know totally. They may have some ideas. But I think the request from Mass Housing to them to say, show more of your cards here in terms of what you're going to do with the site. And I think that's relevant for any MassDOT conversations as well, because if I were MassDOT, I would know what kind of traffic do you plan to put out of that property onto Route 9 here, or wherever else.
I completely support the limit of access to Flag Road. And I think.
Did you say limited or no? The
Limit
same
of.
as saying.
Limit of
Same as saying,
access.
no access whatsoever to Flag Road,
And
which takes care of maybe the other ones, Flag Road, whatever, because you got to, you're still going to Flag Road from Blackthorn. So, you focus on the flag.
But I also think there was a letter that went to Mass DOT from a prior board.
Right.
Before I was on the board. I think we should consider resending some form of that letter again. And
I think that'd be good too, but that's separate from the response to Mass.
Agreed. But I think we can do them simultaneously.
And I also think, Lisa, that we ought to be talking to MassDOT. I think we ought to have a conversation and get Karen involved, but sit down with them and say, hey, folks, here's what we're concerned about. And I actually had a chance to chat with someone from MassDOT recently who was involved, who was involved in the project for the 495 pipe interchange that is now starting.
Yeah.
And after that is going to come Route 9 495 interchange. And so getting on their radar for, here's what's going on. And by the way, the Dell site now is going to be sold at some point to generate traffic. Westborough has a big project going in on the west side of the interchange. So to get their thoughts about what happens when all that traffic starts going in there, what impact does that have on Park Central potentially, and are there other things that need to be on their radar screen as we reinforce our desire to keep the Flag Road area protected from, again, public safety risks and walkers, strollers, riders, people in the school, et cetera.
And I think lastly, I'm gonna ask council, there might be something else we might add into the note. I've gone back and looked at some of the covenants that were put on through the prior project with some of the abutters to the project. And there's a clause in there that talks about abandonment of project in the event that any developer determines not to construct the townhouse component or the apartment component, whether by approvals, lack of approvals, or not appealing. It talks about that this covenant can be terminated And if it's terminated, that all pending applications, after terminating this agreement pursuant to section 9, the developer and any party financially thereto shall not submit any application, permit, or approval from local, state, or federal for 2 years.
So her point is if it hasn't
You have a
been.
book and page number on it, or-
It's the covenant with the abutters, but not only,
So do you have a book and page number?
I do, Andrew, it's book 54292, page 18. It's 27 pages. It's attached to each of them. Again, I'm going to ask counsel because, well, this is still in place. This specifically said this agreement that there would be no access on Blackthorn. There would be only 180 of the units, and they signed off on placement on the concept plan. At the back of it, it's 27 pages where the buildings are not sitting in someone's backyard. So I think.
And there's buildings now, some of them maybe more in wetlands.
Correct. So, but again, I think it's worth asking counsel, because if any of this,
Yeah, but how long has it been now since they decided not to? I'm not sure when the 2-year time clock starts.
it starts when they terminate these agreements with all of the,
When was that?
they haven't terminated anything.
Okay.
So,
Another interesting question.
yeah, so again, it's just, and Andrew, you can even take this if you want. I pulled it from the covenants, and that's only some of the pages. I didn't print out all 27 pages, but
Which may delay, on the other hand, still may not deal with the underlying.
no, but it might give a little bit of time, breathing room as well.
Yeah.
So again, and maybe council will read it differently, but I certainly think it's worth exploring that.
Yeah.
Especially if it relates to placement in Blackthorn. So
All right,
anyway,
so we've got 5 points to lead off with, you know, saying right off the bat, when I agree with Sam, say right off the bat, we ask you not to approve this unless these 5 things are dealt with appropriately. Now we've got maybe a 6th, okay,
Yeah.
so far?
Yeah.
All right.
And
Okay,
from
so does anyone else have a major point besides those 6 to put as far as letter?
The only thing I would add, I would expand on one of Sam's on the property lines, and make a comment that it's in a neighborhood with 2-story buildings. So I think it.
All right, so we flush that
Right.
out as far as
So
what.
just expand.
Because I agree, the more specific we are as far as what we're asking, instead of asking them to solve it for us, you know, we say, this is what, we want to do, this is why, you know, the previous deal had, you know, went from 5 to 2 buildings when we negotiated, and it pushed it way away. And da. So I agree, we definitely, so I'm just trying to outline it right now, so this is our outline, right? And then we flush out each of these points as far as specific things we're asking them to do, right? And explain.
in the body of the letter.
Yeah.
Flesh out. more
So
detail.
Sam, are you saying there's from this letter that there should be stuff that's taken out, or?
Not necessarily, but maybe streamline some of it. I really haven't thought about the specific structure. I was looking for it to be.
He's talking
Start to
organization
finish.
more than anything at this point, I think, Andrew, as far as how you kind of start, you know, you're supposed to start off with a bang, right? You write a paper, tell the reader what you're trying to prove, right? So we start off with a little bit stronger statement than what the draft letter says. What's in this letter, there's a lot of stuff that needs to go, a lot of what Sam said, there is already a paragraph there, so we do the content here, we're just reorganizing and starting off with more of a bang as far as what we want Mass Housing to do, so that it's clear what we want them to
And
do,
then
right?
wrapping up with the reinforcement of that.
Yeah.
And I think there's always some danger of, you know, putting people to sleep if you have, 10 pages of
Yeah.
context in the middle, so you got to be a little careful about that. Too much context.
Okay, so does anyone have another major bullet to flush out in this letter besides the 5 or possibly the 6, depending on what Lisa and Mr. Telemann discover?
I had one that's, I think, related to something that Sam said, so. Is part of the ask in part of the whole traffic equation that Mass Housing help to facilitate meetings between MassDOT and the town to.
I think it's on the developer.
yeah,
I think what we're saying is that, here's what we need to protect the interests of the town and neighborhood here.
The
And
developer needs to
it's
solve
his
the
job
traffic problem.
to solve the problem.
Yep.
And we're happy to, participate in the discussions, but really, we're not developing it. We're not creating the traffic. So in my view, it's his job to come up with a solution and work with MassDOT to make that work. And if MassDOT or developer comes back to us and says, here's a proposal, does that do it for you? And I think we're happy to respond.
And Andrew, I don't think we can overemphasize the part about the other 83 acres. If you go back and read the court case, the judge, he was meticulous about, he really looked at everything that was presented, all the exhibits, all the testimony. He went and looked at the site himself. But he concluded something that you might disagree with, which is that there was only going to be 900 something cars a day. He ignored the additional traffic that was going to be created by that 125 room hotel and the 150 bed assisted living place, right? I have no idea if that's what was truly contemplated at that point. I don't know if they just threw that in there as something that could happen, but there's going to be something done with those other 83 because he hasn't said I'm going to donate to the town, right? So that traffic could, be a multiple of what the 200 units could create depending on what he does. So I think we've got to really emphasize to Mass Housing how important it is to truly understand the plans for the whole parcel. It's just really not fair not to have that information as we go forward this process. It really is just inappropriate not to truly understand the whole thing because you're making this decision in part, and the other part it could overwhelm the traffic.
And Freddie brought up a point, Kathy, when we had the sidewalk, it wasn't really a sidewalk. That non-sidewalk, that, without knowing what the other acres are, how do you build this road coming in off of Flag when you may put a 100,000, 200,000 square foot building there with a ton of cars, which would be, the road would have to be done very differently.
Look at Amazon distribution.
Yeah, and remember, it's zone industrial, don't forget this, by right, it's industrial.
Right.
So what if it is Amazon and all those trucks in and out all day long on that road, and if we even if we put the truck exclusion on Flag, it would stop those, that's its destination, right? Those trucks will still come in, so I think we cannot lose sight of the fact that he's only talking about 17 acres right now.
I agree.
Yep.
Kathy, from a process standpoint, we got to get a letter updated quickly here. I mean, I would volunteer to work with Park and Vanessa to take the current letter and put front end, back end on it. Have something to distribute for a conversation for the meeting next week, maybe to try to flesh it out more and have it more ready to go target maybe these kind of changes in it, unless somebody else wants to do it.
Sold
for me too. You two are busy with the Chiefs contract, right?
Yeah.
I got plenty to do.
I got plenty to do.
So Lisa said, I agree. So yourself, Sam.
And I will
We're
reach
taking
out
over.
to Jay tomorrow if we can send him this and just get his opinion on it,
Good, yeah, because it'd be useful to include whatever we can.
whatever we can.
So are you thinking of, to make this the most productive, so the letter is at 3 pages right now. The 2013 letter was 3 pages, right? So if you don't cut things and you put in the structure, how many pages do you think is the ideal letter?
3-ish, maybe, or less. Really streamlined some.
Okay.
Again, I'm not convinced that Mass Housing is going to be compelled by a lot of this stuff.
I agree, but we gotta try.
We gotta try. I think we want to make all the points that we need to get in here. Maybe not all the flesh that would be full book, if you will. At least have placeholders for everything that we care about.
So
I
Pound
think
these
that,
points out.
yeah, I'm sorry, one of the things from the site visit too is that the comments and the things that are provided during the comment period are obviously shared by Mass Housing with the developer.
Sure.
And the developer has the opportunity to then take some of those comments, and potentially change the proposal.
Yeah.
So that's what they said that day, is what they have now is pretty much a base proposal, but what comes before the boards and committees that it's required to for approval may look a little bit different based on, so while I agree, you've got the points that you want to hit, if there are other things that we think are worth mentioning, make sure they're either mentioned in what we put in or what the residents' letters have with them. So that there's an opportunity for those to potentially be addressed before it even gets to us.
And one thing that occurred to me possibly was we want to make a comment on the size. We want to say, reduce the number of units to X, to help with the massing thing somehow, like a specific suggestion, request along that line. I don't know right now, but
So, to that point, about the size, one of the bullet points at the end is mentioning the town needs 57 affordable units.
yeah.
And then when we ask that the applicant take that into consideration in the assignment of number of the four, that's really suggesting that the project should be like a little bit bigger.
That's right, yeah, I know.
So,
Or he could do more affordable units. He doesn't have to be, 200 is, the state law limit for Southborough, right? Without, if it goes over, then, ZBA can reject. So that's what the 200, it used to be 180, now it's up to 200. That's where he got the 200. He did the max that he could do per state law. But why wouldn't you? So this is my worry. And see you guys, I hope I'm not going to worry too much of this one. Right now, we think that we're 56 units short as far as the subsidized housing inventory being over the,
And that's over the 2020 census number?
well, so that's the problem. They haven't issued that. So this is still an estimate. That's what the Park Central folks think, because they put that's what they think right now. So they think so they knew it was 56 and yet they proposed 50, right? So that means that even if this goes through, we're still not there. So does that mean that someone else come back with another really big 40B on that property after this one? So I don't know the answer to that one, but I will, we certainly should try to make sure that we get over the hurdle with this project if it ends up going through, right?
I'm not sure that's a mass housing requirement or push as much as a negotiation.
Probably not. I agree with you. So I agree, there's the negotiations that we're going to have to,
Last time the ZBA negotiated, I think, inappropriately in some ways.
Yeah.
But if you put something on the table, again, that the developer gets a chance to see
Yeah.
before they get to submit,
Yeah.
it's something they could give consideration to.
Right, good point, Mark. I think that may be worth putting in.
so
Either reduce the size or increase the affordables to get us over the threshold.
just one other of the bullets as I'm thinking about whether to get your structure and then keep a lot of this, but keep it 3-ish pages, that the one of the last bullets in the draft letter, it's not a complete sentence, but I think it was like a placeholder for it, which is impact on town services due to the additional residents generated from proposed housing units. This includes schools, public safety. So one concern that I have from mass housing standpoint is that that's a concern with absolutely every single, they don't care about that.
Yeah.
So as much as it is a real concern, I think we should consider not mentioning that, because that gives it a flavor of like, this is just a standard complaint.
I think we need to read the whole thing with that kind of viewpoint to say, what is it that really is distinctive for us?
uniquely about Southborough as far as.
Site specific.
Right, site specific.
Yeah.
Yeah. Completely agree.
And they're familiar with the background of this
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
too.
Very.
So,
Is that a fact? We know that this
Well,
guy was
no,
around.
but if the 2013 letter was addressed to the same person.
Yeah, he was.
Who was there at the site visit.
he was, he's very familiar with the site.
The people, the sites.
So Kathy, process-wise, do you want to schedule another meeting?
Why don't we
now?
at least get to meetings? So we know we've got it, if we're gonna do it, we know what it is, so
Yep.
everybody can make sure it's gonna.
And how long do you think it'll take for you to work with? And again, I'm not stepping on your toes.
Few days.
Okay, so see when's a good day to shoot for it? Going at.
Next Wednesday, Thursday, maybe?
14?
Are we thinking of a in-person meeting, a Zoom meeting, morning, evening?
I'm flexible.
Yeah.
Well, mine would definitely be Zoom next week, but that's okay.
Okay, well, Zoom is, again, we're just discussing the letter, so
We got the choice here, so, all right. So everybody look at 14th and 15th.
I can do either.
I can't do the morning of the 15th, but I can do anytime the 14th. Afternoon.
I'm flexible with it. I think I'm flexible.
You're flexible on both days?
Andrew, what's easier for you? Because you're going back in Boston, so.
So this is a Zoom meeting, right?
Let's
I can
just
do-
say.
I can do the 14th, and the morning is better than the afternoon.
14th is better in the afternoon.
Better than in the
It's
morning.
better in the
So
morning.
14th morning,
How's it
right?
work for you, Chelsea?
I think that's fine. Just, what time are we thinking?
Well,
We're available after 9 or something.
9:15 is
9:15.
great.
So just thinking it through,
Yeah,
if you need to post 2 days before, right?
Yeah.
And then, so you gotta have to post on Monday. Ooh, this is the morning.
why would you just not
As
post
soon as the
tomorrow?
clerk's office.
Because the townhouse is closed on Friday. Why would you just not post it tomorrow? It's a one
Right,
item.
then we can always cancel.
Yeah,
it.
it's
Okay.
just one item. Right.
So here's what I'm thinking, not just the posting I think it's important so that residents that are following this can have some.
So you're
there's a
talking
pack-
about the actual packet?
Yeah, that the next draft, which the board discusses
Got it.
on the
Yeah.
14th, that there be, I guess it's not subject to the 48 hour,
It's not.
but at least, to endeavor to have it posted a day.
I guess my goal would be to get it out Monday.
Yeah,
So Sam and Vanessa and Mark can work to have it ready on Monday, right? That gives people chance, 2 days to read it, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to read it. Which I think is about the best we can do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Chelsea, 9:30, whatever you do, just a question.
thank you, Mark.
No, 9:15 is fine. I mean, I can do 9:30 if we'd rather do that.
I'm flexible.
Okay, you guys decide. Andrew?
Andrew, I mean, you and Chelsea, I think are the two with.
sorry. We're talking about what?
Wednesday, the
Wednesday,
14th.
the 14th, at either 9:15 or possibly 9:30.
That's fine.
Or 9:15, everybody agree?
Yep.
Okay. With one item.
Sort of like Amtrak, 9:15 sounds very precise.
All right, 9:15 or
Yeah,
9:30?
I got
Just
I'm very calculated.
9:30?
Did you just change it to 9:30?
I'm just asking, are we 9:15 or 9:30?
Right now, we're not 9:15.
9:15.
Perfect, okay. I just want to make sure I put it in my phone right.
Okay.
That's all.
I'm not on this Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
All right, so, yeah, good luck, Sam, Vanessa, and Mark. Okay, let's see, I think that's it, right? Public comment?
Yes.
If I could just do one thing, Kathy, if I
Go
just,
ahead.
if we can thank everyone that has taken the time to already send in letters, some of them were pretty detailed, and some people took a heck of a lot of time, so just on behalf of the board, thank you for giving us your feedback to be able to forward to Mass Housing.
And some of them are very well written.
Yeah.
Very well, so.
Okay, good point, good point.
That's it.
Okay, so do we have any other further public comment?
Let's see.
All right.
Oh, Mr. Green.
Oh, there goes John Green.
Yeah, good evening, John Green, 10 Tower Road. I just want to say thank you to Sam. I think it started very well as far as the comments going back to the state. I am concerned with the comments about trying to get to 56 units. This area of town cannot handle a development of this size, and 56 units should not be coming into play here at all. You're never going to get to 56 units. The whole project shouldn't be 56 units. There's a lot of things that need to happen for something like that to happen. So I would consider completely striking that from any sort of communication back. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? So 10:10.